Are you ready? Okay. We're going to reconvene to our regular meeting. Item 5, closed session report. Conference with legal counsel anticipated litigation significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Governance Code 54956.9. Information received. All right, item 6, patriotic exercise. Our patriotic exercise will be led by Karina, Brandon, Peter, and Amelia. Are you all here? They are not present. One. Is any one of them here?
No, they are not.
Okay, well.
We have a couple of McKinley's kids here, but those students are from BIS.
Oh, okay. Would any child in this room like to do the patriotic exercise? Let's say the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. Any adults?
We have a, I think
Oh,
we
yeah.
have a
Okay, come on. Come on.
Eva wants to do it.
We can do it with you.
Oh,
Wow.
Oh, that is so
Yes. Can you tell us your names?
Enzo.
Enzo? Is that your sister?
That's my daughter.
My name is Emma.
Eva?
I have a.
Eva? Okay.
We'll do it with you. Ready? Why don't you get us started?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank Would you like to take a picture up here with the flag?
No.
Thank you for your service though tonight. It's very nice. You really stepped up for us.
So trustees, before we get started this evening, I would like to ask, we've had some comments that our YouTube recordings, the sound is not good enough. So folks do need to be actually aware of their microphones. They are very sensitive, but you need to speak in your microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Roll call for tonight. Trustee Kendall here. Trustee Mudd here. Trustee Sarpongel
Here.
Trustee Reed
Here.
and Trustee Wong here. Okay, item 8, approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Kate.
I'll second.
Thank you, Lisa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 9, approval of minutes from January 18, 2022 and January 28, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from January 18th, 2022 and January 28th, 2022.
Kate, is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Deepak. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 10, public statements related to agenda items. At the discretion of the Board of Trustees, the public may address the board on non-agenda topics and/or agenda items. If you choose to make a public statement, you must be present at the meeting and complete the blue request to address the Board of Trustees form and provide it to the superintendent's assistant. Please note that comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending upon the topic and number of persons wishing to be heard. If your comment is on an item that is not on the agenda, then you will be asked to speak during the public statements related to non-agenda topics at the end of the meeting. If your comment is on an agenda item, is an item that is on the agenda, then you will be called on to speak at the time of the agenda item.
You know,
Inclusive now, or?
just general instructions and we move on to union statements.
All right, item 11, union statement from BDA. Is there anyone here from BDA with a statement? Hi, please state your name in the microphone.
And hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to be speaking with you tonight about the County Elementary School. With all of the changes that these last 2 years have brought to us, it has been refreshing to see it and share in the learning of our students. The county's diverse community, strong community, and new leadership have all added to our successful reopening of this school year. With all of the diverse and unique classroom learning happening in our campus, here are just a few of the many things to share from our hold-up family. We recently celebrated our 100th day of school with a small parade of our kindergarten classes. Primary grades also successfully showcased their 100th day celebrations. As last year, we were virtual during this time. Our fifth graders celebrated a large milestone of their 1,000th day of school. Yesterday, we celebrated Valentine's Day. In kindergarten, we have the post office project during this time of year, which lasts like a couple of weeks. It is always an exciting role-play project, but this year is especially significant since last year students did not have the opportunity to give out the cards to their friends in person. Our students are showing academic progress across all subjects from letter identification to social studies standards. Burlingame School District recently adopted new literacy assessments, which have been implemented across all schools, and the county is no exception. We are diligently assessing our students to monitor and track their growth. Also, Ms. Moali has been working tirelessly to help us update our school safety plan to ensure safety protocol. It's known by the staff and practical for implementation. The door is always open for others and offers our Kelly community a great opportunity to be heard by her. And last, I celebrate having our students physically with us. It is overwhelming to see our children trotting into the campus every morning with a smile on their face, greeting teachers and classmates. Every time I have a morning duty, I see hand games, conversations, giggles, and laughter. Well, to the excitement of being at school and being part of the Kelly community. Thank you.
Statement of principals. Do we have a principal here?
We do. Ms. Gilbert, did you manage to draw the straw for 2 meetings in a row?
I did.
Wow, congratulations. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you. So I'm here representing the principals of the district, and the first thing is really the change in the masking protocols, and all of us have really seen about 50% or more students keeping their masks on at recess and lunch, which especially on the BIS campus was surprising and delightful. But kids are eating lunch and putting their masks back on, and so we're happy to see that happening. I'm sure as we get farther away from day 1 and day 2, that will evolve, but it was just actually really surprising that was happening. The elementary schools celebrated the 100th day of school on February 7th and had a really good time. At the middle school, the teachers celebrated the 100th day of school. So it was a little different. And we just had a potluck for lunch. McKinley celebrated on February 2nd, a global day of play. And basically it's something that Peter Gray, he's a sociologist, talked about that, and Plato wrote a quote that you can discover more about a person in an hour of play than in a year of conversation. So, and coming from preschool not that long ago, play-based learning is very important. And even for us adults, it's very important. So we definitely want to keep play in mind. And then elementary schools are in the middle of conferences right now, and they are going well. The upper grades are leading the discussions, and there's been a really high participation rate. So everything is going well.
Item 13, statement of our superintendent.
So good evening, everybody. I'm going to be very brief and just specifically address the fact that we are conducting public interviews this evening for new school board members. I want to thank the folks and the interest for coming. I will state before we get there that 2 of our 5 folks withdrew over the past 24 hours, wanting to focus and continue on focusing on volunteering at their school sites rather than serving on the school board and not having the time to do both. And so we have 3 folks with us this evening, and I'm just going to preface it by saying we really appreciate the interest. We actually had a lot of interest and 5 people that actually spoke and completed the process of being willing to be appointed. Appointments will go through this December. There is an election prior to that, and I just want to appreciate all of the interest. I also want to make it clear that appointing folks in public is a very awkward and uncomfortable process. And I just want to call that out front. That is not necessarily by design. It's just the nature of being on a public board that we don't do anything confidentially and we don't make decisions in private. We have to have all conversations out front. So while I want to acknowledge that tonight might be a little outside of everybody's comfort zone, including my own. This is the first time in 27 years I've had to actually go through an appointment process rather than an election process. It is a requirement that we do all of our business in public. And I want to celebrate that we have folks willing to do that and point out that we have 3 seats open for election this coming November. So we appreciate the interest and we hope to get even more between now and our next election cycle. So I just wanted to put that out up front in my statement tonight, because I know it's a different process and it could be potentially a little uncomfortable to have to be interviewed in public. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris. All right, now we'll move to item 14, statements of board members. Let's start with you, Elizabeth.
All right. Yeah, so hi, everybody. And hi, want to echo what Chris said. We're grateful to have people here interviewing for the board positions, and this is quite a process we're all going through. So we'll be getting back to that next. So for my statement, but thank you. So for my statement, I wanted to say that Tim Ryan took Lisa and me on a tour of BIS to see the new construction. And then we got to put on hard hats and go in, and it was like so amazing. We even got to go up and see in the auditorium on the 2nd level and check out the new lighting fixtures, which are beautiful. It was so exciting to see this all coming together. We went through the classrooms again to see what the finger wings were looking like with all the teachers' materials in there. And it was just a really exciting and positive moment. We also learned a lot about how they pour foundation in California and the environmental requirements of why you have to do all these steps and everything. So I want to thank Tim for doing that, and that was a very exciting thing to do. So that was good.
Thank you, Lisa. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I was also going to mention that Tim Ryan took us so graciously at 7 in the morning.
7:30 in the morning.
7:30 in the morning, which was a long haul for him, coming from Marin. So it was really beautiful. The sun was rising, and it just was so pretty with all of the new landscaping and to see the footprint of the new student rec center. It's just amazing all the hard work that's going into it and how organized and while the team is working together. My takeaway from the whole morning was it's such a great space to learn in and such a great space to be a teacher in. I mean, just the classrooms had so much sunlight, beautiful windows, and it was the first time that I had seen the open pathways compared to how they were closed before, which was just so beautiful. And then along with Trustee Reed, I attended an exploratory parcel tax meeting. We'll be meeting again this month, and the hope is that many of our stakeholders have had a chance to talk with their membership to assess their willingness to volunteer if we were to proceed. And I would also like to acknowledge and thank all the candidates tonight that considered the role and took the time to meet and connect with all of us and learn more about the position. And I look forward to learning more about you in today's meeting.
Sure. Thanks, President. So I think this is my last board meeting and am sad about that. But I also want to echo what Lisa said, which is to thank the community members who have volunteered. That sounds potentially for the board. And, we're not going to, I had conversations with Doug and, the trustees who ended up pulling out because of the commitments. And, we don't try to pretend like approving board minutes is a thrilling task. But we're very candid about the fact that you really can make a positive difference in this role. And it really is an important function and service. And so we really do appreciate the people who are willing to put in that time, like my fellow board members and the administration have, because it is really important. And again, like while some of the matters are a little bit more procedural, I think all of us, I suspect, really appreciate the fact that we can make some difference. And that makes it worthwhile and an enjoyable experience. So anyway, I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate all of you who are stepping up to potentially take one of our roles. And I'll again just kind of thank all my fellow board members. The other good news for the people who volunteered is you are stepping into an excellent board. There's a lot of boards that are not, that are dysfunctional and that do not function well. This is not one of them. This is an excellent board, excellent superintendent and administration from Marla and Kirsten, Allison, Tim, Amanda, everybody. So, I think it's a great situation, and I'm glad that you are considering being involved. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I echo what everybody said. Not a lot of updates tonight. The last one, my last BCE update. So I have to make sure I get it up there. BCE just wants to make sure everybody knows that they're so appreciative. The readathon went really well. They raised more than $230,000 and students read over 600,000 minutes, which is huge. It was such a fun community event, and it was so nice to have that and feel that normalcy again. And kids were excited about it. I know we had a lot of books open in our house that weekend, so it was great. They're currently sitting around 1.8 million towards their 2.65 goal in order to continue to fund 20 teachers' salary and PD. And the big focus now has shifted to the auction, the gala, which is coming up. They still need auction item donations. So anyone that has vacation homes or sports tickets or things like that, just want to get the message out there again. The gala is scheduled for April 16th. They are planning to do it in person. So they've taken some surveys. They're kind of reassessing, but it will happen unless the state makes some changes. And then the auction will last from April 8th to April 18th. So they're asking the entire community just to help make it successful to get them to their final goal. And then from a PTA standpoint, we had the PTA council meeting today. They're continuing just to focus on the big push now is building their PTA boards and their PTA exec boards for next year. So getting nominated committees together and making that happen. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Thank you, Kate. All right, I attended a board liaison meeting, and I guess the main topic of discussion was just understanding how the BCE funding works and how it translates into our everyday activities at school based on the priorities that are mainly set by the donors to BCE, which their board tries to respect. District tries to respect as best we can. That's all I had, and again, like everyone said, welcome to the people who stepped up to put their names in to apply for our interim positions. As you can see, we started out with a larger group, and sometimes people change their minds at the last minute. I'm very grateful that you guys didn't, because we definitely appreciate people who would like to serve in this role. And it is, I think, worth it. There are some things that maybe actually aren't enjoyable, but it's never not interesting. I promise you that. It's always interesting. So with that, we'll move on to item 15 on for the consent agenda. And I actually want to read this paragraph. So I think a lot of understand it. All items on the consent agenda are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted by the board in one motion in the form listed below. There will be no discussion on these items prior to the time the board votes on the motion, unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be discussed and removed from the consent agenda. The superintendent and staff recommend approval of all consent items. Movement of any suggested consent items is appropriate at this time. Is there anyone who would like to move an item off the consent agenda? Open? No? Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Lisa, seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Yes. Oh, after. All right, item 16, administration, part 1 of 2, 6.1, interim board member appointment interviews and public hearing for public comment on candidates.
Thanks, President Wong. At the January 18, 2022 board meeting, Trustee Reed and Trustee Sarpongo announced their departure from the BSD Board of Trustees due to moving out of the district. The two board member vacancies will be filled by board appointment. Applications were accepted through February 1st of 2022, and tonight the board will interview the candidates listed below. After the interviews, the board will open up for public comment on the candidates. The board will then discuss candidates and select 2 interim board members this evening to fill the positions effective March 15th, 2022 through the end of 2022. The new board members will take their oath and begin to serve on the board at the March 15th, 2022 board meeting. Both positions will be filled for the next term at the public election scheduled for November of 2022. And so the process very quickly, for those that haven't had a chance to read the item on the agenda, is we will be drawing randomly the 3 folks that we have tonight to determine the order of their interview. The same interview questions will be asked of each candidate, and each candidate will have a maximum of 15 minutes to respond to all questions from the board. The board members, all 5 board members, are eligible to take notes, and they will be force order ranking each of the candidates anonymously. When the candidates are done and public comment is complete, we will read out the force ranking results, which will begin the discussion of appointment of the candidates. And I think that's about it. Any questions, trustees, about the process this evening? All notes from the trustees will be taken and shredded by myself after the meeting.
Sorry, let me do a quick preview
Yes,
of what's
so
going to happen.
Just to
Right.
clarify, Deepak and I will still rank, but we do not actually vote.
Correct. So you can participate in all activities this evening, but you cannot vote for your own replacement.
But you do the first rank.
Yeah. So you can ask questions, you can take notes, you can give me your first ranking.
I knew you could ask questions.
Yep.
You know, we also rank.
Okay. So I will read all 3 in the order and then we'll begin. The first person answering questions this evening will be Chaitanya. Second person will be Daniel. And the third person will be Doug. So that establishes the order of the interviews, and the trustees will take the same interview questions each round that you should have in front of you with your questions specified. Great, so we can get started. Chaitanya, if you'd like to come up to the microphone, make sure that you adjust it so you can speak right into it so that the public can hear you.
You can say,
Yeah.
pull it from
You have to take
the.
Does it come out?
You could,
Yeah, it should come out, the mic.
Oh, just the handheld.
Yeah,
There we go.
Okay,
and then make sure to speak right.
great. So welcome, and with that, we will get started. You will have a timer set, And Mr. Takis, is it something that he can see so that he can mind his own time?
Yes,
Please, we'll go up
it,
there.
it will go up on the TV.
Great.
Okay, welcome.
Hello.
Hi, so I'll start with the first question. What contribution do you feel you can make which is unique to your background and experience, which can further the educational goals of the district?
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to say thank you for this opportunity. I've been looking for ways to contribute more to the community, and when I saw this email, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I need to follow up on this and see what we can do. So professionally, I'm a senior engineering manager at Facebook. I'm responsible for security infrastructure there. And prior to that, I was at Google for 15 years, working primarily in the engineering productivity space, managing people, all over the nation and the world, working on a variety of products, primarily focused on how systems, technology, and processes can make people more productive. Both the products that we work on, like G Suite and Gmail and those things, and the engineers that I work with there. Most of my career, I've spent balancing a bunch of different and cross-functional viewpoints. There's product managers and other people who are very specific on X, Y, and Z needs to get done right away. There's other people that think that quality is the best thing that we need to move forward on, and vice versa. And developed a structure to figure out what is the most effective way to improve systems. Additionally, both at Google and at Facebook, I've been involved in many diversity and inclusion programs. Directly seeing how small changes in things like systems and unconscious bias can have a really big impact on underrepresented people. I think this combination of experience can be pretty unique use to the district as technology continues to change our lives, and balancing opinions on how to best move forward using technology and the different changes that are facing the district is going to be pretty key to our success.
Thank you. Why would you like to join the Board of Education?
So in a nutshell, I think I mentioned it was basically impact. When I moved to the Bay Area in about 2016, and I was living here, sort of looking around, figuring out where to move my family to settle down for the long run. And we ended up choosing Burlingame primarily based on the school district and how amazing the progress and changes that have been happening here are. I have two kids, 7-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. Both will be going to Franklin. Does go to Franklin already. Prior to this move, I moved around a lot. And even though I wanted to be involved more in local politics and things, it's always been kind of on the back burner. Figuring out, how to make an impact in the local community, not knowing that, I was going to move next in some other place. So given the opportunity with the interim appointment, it looked like a pretty clear opportunity to be involved in a way that can fit in with my schedule and contribute my experience in a way that's both helpful to the community and can make some impact.
All right. So please identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal values and beliefs to determine how to vote on that issue.
Yeah, this question was an interesting one. I spent a lot of time watching previous board meetings, trying to understand the processes and decision-making processes that people members were taking to move forward. And in general, I was very impressed by all of the decisions and procedures that were there. It's pretty clear that, as you mentioned, the well-functioning board is pretty key to why the district is running the way that it is. So I didn't really have a clear, like, oh, this decision is the one that I want to talk about. One that did stand out though, kind of recently was around the discussions around whether or not we should be building houses for district employees, right? The question that was kind of salient there is like, is this the best way to move forward, right? And is this the best use of the resources that we have? I'm guessing that question comes up quite a bit in district questions, right? And you know, because there's basically an unlimited number of items that we could be doing and a very limited amount of resources that could happen there. So my approach for those kinds of questions in general is mainly one to get organized and then align on the approach for decision making. I wanted to understand, you know, what are we trying to optimize? What is the most pressing concern for each one of those stakeholders that you mentioned, right? Each one of these, you know, community concerns, student needs, and things have you know, a priority list of items that need to be fixed. And each decision that needs to be made by the board kind of has to be put up against those kinds of decisions, right? And then collectively kind of decide, you know, what is the net impact going to be on the district, right? Now, that isn't to say that the best approach is just to average all the concerns out, because that's kind of the, you know, that's kind of the way just to get average across the board, right? So you definitely want to make sure that you're optimal in various kinds of things and to be very specific in what we are trying to improve, and then see how the decision can change those things.
Great. If you could please describe your response if a parent cornered you in the grocery store and asked for your support on a particularly hot issue. And this is real life experience. This has happened to most of us, so.
Yeah, this was a fun one to think about as well. I think in my work career, this kind of happens on a daily basis as well. Just people trying to curry favor to figure out, you know, to get their own agenda. I think I kind of divide this into two areas, depending on the time available, I guess, in the grocery store, right? I think primarily I tried to direct them into more established lines of communication because you know, as you mentioned, this is a public board and transparency is pretty important. And having side conversations with, you know, influence and things like that is probably not the area that we want to be going down. So, you know, I want to sort of tell this person, you know, voices can be equitably heard, come to the meetings, talk with the rest of the board, make your opinions known, that kind of thing. You know, barring that, or, you know, if there just wasn't the way to disengage, I'd probably move more into just listen mode, right? Get more information, explain some of the trade-offs that the board is thinking. I think I mentioned before in terms of, you know, the different priorities that are there. And you know, try to explain some of the decision-making process because a lot of the times views don't have all the information, and getting all of the information is probably the first step for most of those things. I do want to sort of mention that I think it's really important to engage. As in my opinion, parent involvement is probably one of the most important areas that have a direct effect on the outcome of the district. And it's really important not to shut down that kind of discourse. Like if people are interested in talking about these things, you have to bring out more, you know, encourage that kind of communication. So, but you know, I recognize that one-on-one conversations with everybody in the grocery store is probably not really scalable. So.
Thanks again. So one goal of the Board of Education is to provide stability and leadership and governance to the school district. What is your level of interest in serving on the Board of Education beyond this appointment period?
I think I mentioned before, I've been wanting to get more involved in local discourse and governing things for some time now, but not really entirely sure how to go about doing that. There's, you know, usual volunteering things and you know, participating, which is possible there. But you know, I'm of the opinion that most impact in your community can be made on the local level. And you know, trade-offs and optimizations of resources are probably the place that make that most impact, because you know, that's where things change in your community. This appointment opportunity came at a pretty opportune time where you know, with the pandemic ending and other things, it's kind of a really interesting option to try it out, to see if it fits in the schedule and the timeline and what kind of an impact I can make. And if it definitely fits, then I definitely want to take it forward and continue to, you know, probably figure out what's involved in all the election stuff and so on. So yes, I am more interested in the future as well.
All right. That brings us to question number 6. What do you see as the most pressing issue facing BSD over the next few years? What are your thoughts on how to address this issue?
So, as I said, when I was looking through and sort of doing research about how to answer this question, the conclusion that I came to is probably the most important thing is teacher retention and turnover. And by proxy, you know, teacher retention and turnover is kind of a finance question as well. It appears through some of the research that I did that turnover is kind of increasing, you know, over time. If you look at data over, you know, the past 10 years or so, although we do have a couple of outlier years here in the past couple of years. As I said before, like in the long term, I think overall health of the district is dependent on sort of long-term commitments and engagement from the community and teachers and everybody involved. If you have a lot of turnover, it's really hard to get long-term thinking in place. So that should be kind of a priority, like more parent involvement, more teacher involvement, more long-term thinking for the health of the district. Some interesting thoughts on how we might address the issue is to look at optimization of technology and resources to see if we can get some more efficiency out of there, because I've seen systems sort of change in orders of magnitude through technology use in some ways. And another opportunity is to look really closely at benefits. There's some interesting economies of scale and opportunities to do something unique in benefits. That's kind of more than just direct, you know, how much money is there and how much we can compensate people. That could, you know, make for some interesting discussions around long-term stability.
So you have 2 minutes and 18 seconds left.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you haven't had a chance to share with us tonight that you'd like to share?
No, I have pretty much covered everything. I grew up in Arizona. If you want to know more about that. I was born in India originally, but then I spent, I grew up most of my time in Arizona, and then I lived in New York for some time, and then I moved here in the Bay. Does anyone have any other further questions?
We can't actually.
Oh, there's
ask
no
you more
questions.
questions.
Okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time. Nice hearing.
Thank you.
Always interesting.
Thank you, Chaitanya. And just so that all of the candidates know, it's up to you after the interviews are completed, whether you want to step out in the hallway or whether you want to be present for board discussion.
A minute. Okay. All right. Welcome, Dan. Hi.
Hi.
Okay. Get started, same thing. Question 1. What contribution do you feel you can make which is unique to your background and experience, which can further the educational goals of the district?
I think I bring three things. One, I am an experienced trial attorney and litigator. Two, I am an educator as well. And three, I am a parent that has only known our education system here in Burlingame through the pandemic, with my oldest child starting kindergarten in the fall of 2020. So just individually about those, as a litigator, I've been through trials, appeals, settlements, mediation, arbitration, all that fun stuff that we hope to avoid, but does happen. So I do have experience dealing with different stakeholders with different motivation and different hurts and different wants and needs, and looking at things as a zero-sum game where there's only so many resources to distribute. And I think in our district, like every district in the last 2 years, we do have a situation where our teachers legitimately feel they have worked harder than ever before. And our parents at the same time also feel we've had to do more than ever before to make up for things that haven't happened. And I'm sure our principals and our staff feel they have done more than they ever have before in the last 2 years. And that's a really challenging dynamic to bridge everything together and make everyone feel valued and come together for our shared mission. And that is something that ideally, as COVID recedes, I know we can't control that and we've hoped that before, but ideally we can reemerge from it and kind of cross those boundaries and work together for the shared mission. That's something that I do have experience with. I'm also an educator, I'm a law professor, so I have experience teaching in these conditions the last 2 years, which is not fun. I was teaching a class today to 70 people in the auditorium, all wearing masks while I'm wearing masks. I can't hear anything anyone says in the back row. I probably shouldn't say that in public. True. And I have classes teach on Zoom at the same time, which has its own challenges as well, as all our teachers know. So I'm very familiar with those challenges and what we've had to go through. And then as a parent, like I said, my oldest started kindergarten in the fall of 2020. I have never met major teachers in person. I've never been in her classroom. I've never even been in the building. I've been on the playground for lunch duty, which is an entirely different experience, which is once a week. I can't put that vest down fast enough and leave. But I do it. It's true. That's a different experience. But there's a growing number of parents, what I'm getting at is that don't have the wonderful memories of going on field trips and working with the teachers and doing things to help out. My only knowledge is 6 feet of social distance, I'll see you on Zoom. And every year we graduate more parents that we lose that have those wonderful experiences. And they're being replaced by people like myself and the parents beneath me in lower grade levels that have not had that experience. And I think we need to recognize that point of view. So, thank you.
Thank you. So why would you like to join the Board of Education?
I want to join because I want to work on budget issues. I'll detail my feelings more about the budget in a later response. But I have concerns, as we all do, and there's only so much we can do. I realize that. But I want to be part of those conversations and part of those solutions. I'm also particularly motivated to engage the parts of our community that we have not got to engage with in the last 2 years. In the last 2 years, we've been very reactive to COVID and beyond our control. Guidance changes every day, and we're just trying to keep the doors open in the classrooms with kids. We haven't really got a chance to go talk to our stakeholders that are voters that don't have children in the district, but still care about the district and still want to see good things happen. And I think ideally we have an opportunity to re-engage those voters as well, those members of our district. So that's another door I would like to open. And then I care very much about our curriculum as well. I want to look for ways to insert technology in everything we do. We live in the capital, the technology capital of the United States. It has to be involved in everything we do. But at the same time, always look for common sense ways to educate our kids. Financial literacy, for one, is something we can continue to promote to our children in grades by the time they go to high school. And other things, I love reading and math and science, but we always need to give our children something to read and write about by making sure they know the arts and other things beyond just the course and curriculum.
Thank you. Okay, so our next question. Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal values and beliefs to determine how to vote on the issue.
Man, dive right in and go into the always fun topic of masks. I did disagree with the decision to allow the mask to come off at lunchtime as an option. And the reason I do is because I think we still have a large part of our community, children under 5, who cannot protect themselves from coronavirus. And it's foreseeable that a lot of our K-5 students have younger siblings in that category. And I think this decision can allow more transmission, and we should be worried about that. And as I said, I'm on the playground every Monday. Those kids are as close as they possibly can be to another human being. It doesn't matter that they're outdoors. And so we've taken away a tool, I think, to protect some of our future students. So I would not have done that. I would have communicated more the rationale behind it. I'm not aware. I know there are projected numbers to go down, but arguably the numbers of cases we have now in the transmission is higher than it was a year ago when we were all wearing masks. So I'm unclear exactly why that happened. So I would have communicated that differently, and I would have made a different decision. But I also recognize I don't have access to the same information you do that led to that decision. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert in any field. I'm just a very average American when it comes to COVID and understanding what's going on.
Can you describe your response if a parent cornered you in a grocery store and asked you for your support on a particularly hot issue?
Believe it or not, that's actually happened. People confuse me with Superintendent Malcolm.
Wow. Wow.
I'm just kidding. It's not.
I'm sure it was our height.
I looked at this one subjectively at first, and I thought, well, if you saw me in the grocery store, I got my 6-year-old and 3-year-old. They're throwing crackers and candy bars in their pockets and car. I'm not someone you would approach if you see it. But I think the intensity of question is, how to communicate with members of the public outside of board hearings. And so I look at it 2 ways. One, very respectful, friendly conversation I'm always happy to have, and then redirect that person to appropriate channels in terms of coming to board meetings, send an email. But I definitely think, as the last candidate said, we always have an obligation as public servants to engage the public, especially those who care about it. There's also the concept, as was alluded to earlier, that some members might not be as friendly in approaching. Generally, I would remove myself from that situation, but also redirect them to the appropriate avenues to the extent possible.
Thank you. One goal of the Board of Education is to provide stability and leadership and governance to the school district. What is your level of interest in serving on the Board of Education beyond this appointed period?
I'm very interested in continuing to serve because I think that the issues with the budget, curriculum, which I think we've done a great job starting to update, but those issues won't be solved in the next few months. And so service is needed longer. I have performed other service to the city of Burlingame. I was on the Parks Redesign Committee for Washington Park and also the new community center also for capital fundraising. I've served in the military for 5 years, so I believe very strongly in public service as well. On a personal note, my family and I are not going anywhere. We have too many mortgage payments left and 4 sets of grandparents that are happy to babysit at any time for free. We can't walk away from that, so we'll be here.
Thank you. So what do you see as the most pressing issue facing BSD over the next few years? What are your thoughts on how to address the issue?
I think the #1 issue is our budget, and I think all other issues are related to that, to include what type of program should we have? Should we expand them? Should we cut them? Should we hire more teachers? Whatnot? All that starts with the budget. And it's a very challenging situation because every reasonable projection shows that most of our budget comes from student bodies in the classroom, and demographics are declining. So it's projected we're not going to have the same revenue, yet expenses always continue to generally rise, whether it's salaries, healthcare requirements, equipment, building maintenance. In a way, it's similar to government trying to fund Social Security or Medicare, Medicaid. So it's a tremendous, tremendous challenge. And I'm familiar with the limitations of Prop 13 and familiar also if we try and go more bonds or parcel tax or extensions. There is voter fatigue out there to these issues as well. Plus, we have a high supermajority threshold to meet for those issues. And so I think we need to the extent possible, look for other resources. One idea, if we're going to develop housing, there's also ways to use real estate also to produce income. I know we get into problems but restrictions when it comes to school districts owning whether property, whether we're renting out for retail space or otherwise. But there are avenues to pursue to continue to give us a supplemental income that we can then use to fund other programs to be part of our core budget. Because I just don't think when I look at the numbers and I see demographics declining in a budget that depends on increasing enrollment, that we can continue to do that long term. We have plenty of COVID money that's coming, but that will be gone very shortly if it's not gone already. And the problems that existed just a year or two ago will be right back, if not greater than the budget goal. So I think that is the number one issue we need to address.
Okay, so 4 minutes left. Is there anything you'd like to share with us that we haven't asked you about yet?
I know I have nothing further to add. Just thank you all for your time, and I appreciate all your service on the board as well. And I wish you two well in your next adventure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. So a minute to write your notes. Sorry. Are you ready? Yes, I'm ready. Okay. Hi, Doug. Okay, question 1. What contribution do you feel you can make which is unique to your background and experience, which can further the educational goals of the district?
Okay. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak with all of you. It's exciting for me, and it's been great to learn more about the district and the board as sort of prepared for this process. So thank you for all of your time and everyone that agreed to talk to me, and appreciate that. So I thought I'd spend just a minute on my background and experience before I sort of explain why I think they're well suited to the position. On a personal note, I have 2 kids in the district. I have a 5th grader and a 2nd grader, both at Lincoln Elementary School. I'm also on the bond oversight committee for the district, so I have a good amount of familiarity with the 2 bond measures as well as the projects. Of course, the oversight committee doesn't select projects, but we oversee the spending of the proceeds to make sure that the bond proceeds are spent in line with the board's direction. So that's been a good process to learn about the process as well as the individual projects that are taking place in the district. Professionally, I'm a managing director at Wells Fargo Securities in the municipal finance division. So I specialize in working with universities and not-for-profit institutions. I help them access capital markets, primarily through bond financing, but I also advise on financial matters, including fiscal sustainability and workforce and student housing. Student housing in particular is a big topic with my clients. So, so I think the 6 goals that are listed on the district's website, two of them fit well with my experience, finance and facilities, for the reasons that I mentioned. I agree with Dan, and I'll probably use quite a few of my 15 minutes to talk about the path to sustainability in the budget. I think I agree that's the biggest issue, at least that as it relates to my experience, where I think I can make a contribution. I think my experience working with educational institutions, reading financial statements, advising on credit and sustainability will be helpful with as the board continues its path towards sustainability. I'll talk a bit about all the difficult decisions that you went through on that front, and I think it's important to keep the focus there, and I think you all have done a good job on that front. So let's see. And I guess directly, my experience lends itself as the workforce housing proposals come back, assuming that they do, and that they're, the board elects to continue down that road, evaluating those projects. I do have experience working on those type of projects professionally, and I think I can lend my experience to evaluating those proposals and those discussions. Thank you.
Why would you like to join the Board of Education?
Well, similar to the other two candidates, I moved to Burlingame with my wife 8 years ago. Number one reason was excellent public schools. We both attended public schools and felt strongly that that was the path that we wanted to pursue for our kids. If it works out, you never know. But we were attracted by that. And having been here and now had several years in the district with 2 kids, it's been fantastic. And I'd like to figure out how to contribute to that and to keep it going in the right direction, despite all the challenges that we've been talking about this afternoon. On a personal, professional level point of view, I've gotten to a point where I feel like I am ready to step up my volunteer work. I've done some work activities in school, including Dad's Club and the Wanda Oversight Committee and so forth, but I'm really looking for an opportunity to increase my volunteer work going forward. This seemed like a good opportunity. I do like making a difference on the local level, having kids in the district, but also having neighbors and friends and community members that all care about this makes it exciting, and being able to have a direct effect is very attractive.
All right. So please identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal values and beliefs to determine how to vote on the issue.
So this is the easy question. Not really. So I think you all have made some very difficult decisions in the past 2 years. And I will say I've paid a lot more attention to the board and with Superintendent Montanitas coming on board and making the issues digestible in emails, ahead of the meeting is extremely helpful. So I've been more engaged just as a parent over the past 2 years. The issue that I'd like to talk about are the budget reductions that you all undertook for the current year budget. Very difficult decisions. 90% of the cost is people. So anytime we're talking about reduction, those are extremely difficult decisions to make and conversations to have. But I feel very, very important because it's the path forward into maintaining the excellent schools that we have. So that's the area that I'll talk a bit about this afternoon. So again, this hit my radar probably early in 2020 when the summary emails came out in the budget presentation talking about what, as a financial person, was clearly an unsustainable path for the budget. And then the county giving conditional approval to the budget, conditional certification, was basically the county telling us that this path is not sustainable and that we'll deplete our reserves if we continue down this path. So that scared me, quite frankly, and which I think was probably the intended effect. That it was successful. So that got me interested in the budget more than I probably would have been otherwise. In terms of how I would approach it and how I ultimately would vote, I think the way you all handled it was excellent, starting with transparency and ringing the bell and telling everyone this is a real problem, we need to look at it. Education. So when I looked at it, my first question was, how can we possibly be short of money when homes here are so expensive, the taxes are so high, et cetera, et cetera. So not coming at it with a thought that we're in a wealthy community, how could we possibly have underfunded schools? It just doesn't make sense. But the communication and transparency was, speaking for me personally, really helped me get there and understand the issues. I think the fact that you reached out to the community, looked for input and ideas about how to address this issue and did this over many months and not all at once to collect ideas and process them was important. I think was the right approach. The budget working group session with the recommendations from superintendent I thought was thoughtful. It was clear to me that the way that those reductions were targeted was basically to have as little effect as possible on the classroom and teachers with certificated employees. And that was done with, to my eye, again, from the outside, a lot of sacrifice from the district office and staff and classified to make those reductions, which probably is painful in terms of the same amount of work, more work, less people. That's got to be very hard, but it had the effect of no immediate layoffs and no much less effect on the teachers, which is at the end of the day what we're all here about is the classroom and the education of the students. So that was, to me, I thought very well handled. It also reflects my personal values of trying to step back and look at the experience and education of the kids is really why we're here. So I thought I was impressed by that, impressed by the staff and the thoughtful questions in the board. And ultimately, I would have voted with the board to accept the budget, including the reductions.
I just want to make you aware of the time.
Yes, that was my long.
So could you describe your response to a parent cornered you in the grocery store and asked you for your support on a particularly hot issue?
Sure. I think my answer is pretty similar on this one. I think I would just be in listen mode. So I think being in a small community, we have to be willing to take that feedback. Obviously, if I don't have time, that's one thing, but I would try to make the time to chat for a few minutes and listen and not really talk, certainly not commit to anything, but make the person aware of that I would be representing, one board member on a board of 5. I don't ultimately make the decision, and there are channels to provide input and speak publicly. But there's certainly no harm in taking the time to listen and understand and really try to take that perspective back to the other board if it seems like something that's useful.
One goal of the Board of Education is to provide stability and leadership and governance to the school district. What is your level of interest in serving on the Board of Education beyond this appointed period?
I'm interested in serving beyond the appointed period. I agree that these challenges are long-term challenges and won't be solved in a few months. I have a second grader, so I've got some runway on the kids in the districts, 6 years or so. I of course can't promise that, but I certainly would plan to stand for election.
Right. Final question. What do you see as the most pressing issue facing BSD over the next few years? What are your thoughts on how to address the issue?
Thanks, Elizabeth. I think I would briefly like to talk about 2 issues. First, sticking with the fiscal sustainability theme. I think enrollment is going to be a big issue with so much of the funding dependent on the average daily attendance. On the plus side, we have some new developments in Burlingame that presumably will bring new families and new students. On the negative, COVID has really changed the way families think about education and what they want for their kids, I think, because it's just been such a big change. So we lost a significant number of families during COVID that the distance learning or it just didn't work for them, or they moved to places that were more affordable, and we're likely not to get a lot of those students back. So that's a challenge going forward. The state held us harmless for 2 years. That's excellent, but that presumably goes away next year. So I think that's going to be a big challenge. In terms of how to address it, I didn't mention on the reductions conversation. Part of that I think was coming up with systems to monitor and sort of track real time enrollment and being able to have controls that allow the district to say, okay, if we're mismatched between our student revenues and expenses, we can make changes more quickly to address that. So I think that's going to be an important tool going forward, but certainly will be a challenge. And then the other issue I just wanted to mention, that I think it's a huge challenge, but I don't have a good solution for, is teacher retention. I think that's going to continue to be a challenging issue just because it's so expensive to live here. And we don't have probably the resources to pay teachers what they deserve, certainly. So I think the workforce housing proposal is interesting. I don't have an opinion right now if that's the right thing to do or not. I'd want to see how the proposals come back, but the idea that the district has land that's not being used that could produce either income or housing for teachers, I think is absolutely something that the board should be pursuing, and would look forward to contributing my thoughts. Thank you.
Wow, we're efficient with us.
caught up.
So we've got 2 minutes and 7 seconds. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us that we didn't ask you about that you'd like us to know?
No, I mean, I guess I can give you just 30 seconds on my personal background. So I've been in the Bay Area 20 some years. I came to Cal for business school, met my wife. We're also not going anywhere. At least till the kids graduate. So I grew up in Montana. We go visit Montana fairly frequently, but again, not going anywhere. I guess just wanted to thank the board for the opportunity. It's, understand these are tough decisions to make, and in terms of selection, and it's been a good experience for me to get to know all of you a little bit, and watch a lot of board meetings, read a lot of agendas, to get myself educated. Really join the board or not, it's been a great experience. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
And I'm going to take the option to wait in the hallway.
And our head of HR, Ms. Bell, is in the back, so she can certainly come get you if you and any of the other candidates would like to wait in the hallway.
Thank you.
Now you see how difficult our decisions are. We have these three great candidates.
Give you a couple more minutes to write notes.
So if you'd like to do the course rankings, and pass them to me, and then we'll do public hearing. That's the opportunity for any member of the public to address us on the candidates. And then after public hearing is closed, I will read the course rankings and the board can discuss.
Okay.
Okay. They're watching us. Bring them up. The guys leave.
All right, so should we wait for 6 minutes?
I think we need to, since we're recording, so we can just go ahead.
All right, I'm going to open the public hearing on the interim board appointment interviews. Now is the opportunity for anybody in the public to make a comment about the interview.
Is there anybody that would like to make public comment? You can approach the mic, that way we would know. Great, so I don't see any public comment at this
All
time.
right, so I am going to, seeing that there are no public comments, I will close the public hearing.
Thank you, President Wong. So the results of the anonymous force rankings to begin conversation. So for candidate Doug Brown, all 5 trustees rated Doug Brown as first in candidacy. For candidate Daniel DeVoy, 3 ranked Daniel second, 2 ranked him third. And for Chaitanya Uskuti, 2 ranked him second, 3 ranked him third.
So I'm not voting, but are you able to nominate and have one go forward and then discuss the other 2, or do you nominate everyone at one time?
So the trustees can do either one, right? So they can nominate a slate, meaning more than 1 candidate at a time, or they can nominate individuals.
But I don't think you can move.
I
You
can't
can't
do
do anything.
No, I just wanted to ask the question in case
That's
my
fine.
3 colleagues would like to nominate one and move forward and then discuss the other 2.
So we could nominate Doug and move forward. Okay, I'd like to nominate Doug. Or I'd like to make a motion to nominate Doug.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so 3 out of 3.
Great. So with only 3 voting members, obviously has to be unanimous. So that means that the first appointment is Doug Brown.
So our discussion now is a fairly close tally between Chaitanya and Dan.
And everyone can discuss.
And we just can openly discuss any, okay. I really appreciated Daniel's experience in law. I think it would be beneficial to have that perspective on the board.
I agree that it would be beneficial, both his legal experience and his educational experience. I guess both he and Chaitanya are parents in the district as well. And again, I think that all 3 of these candidates seem like they would be great. I don't have a vote. The only observations that I had, again, there's a lot of mostly pros, really, and it's just a matter of balancing out the pros. I think that one observation I do have is that I think that my impression is that, particularly since Doug is, I guess, has been voted as one of the appointees, if I had to force rank like who's closest to each other, which is, rough, and, I think that a lot of the expertise that Daniel would bring is brought by Doug, not all of it, but certain of it, and the interest in the finance part of it. What I thought was interesting about Chaitanya is, a slightly different set of perhaps areas of interest. And I guess coming from or representing perhaps, I think you mentioned more underrepresented community members. I think his kids go to Franklin. I think that Doug's went to Lincoln and Daniel's Washington, if I recall. So, they're all from different schools. And so, we can think about sort of that. My personal impression, I think it's hard. I think that on the one hand, I thought it seemed to me like Chaitanya is interested in exploring this and would like to, and genuinely wants to better understand what it's like to be on the board, and provided that it is what what he thinks, would be interested in serving. I suspect that Dan's interest and commitment is more made up. And so on the one hand, I feel like if my speculation is if we don't appoint Chaitanya, then we may not have that opportunity to get this experience and become a serving member of the board. Whereas, again, a simple guess is that Dan would probably still be interested. And in such an event, I would actually hope that he would still be, because we would like to have 3 or more vacancies once President Wong steps down as well after her term. So
Just reason. So you don't want.
I'm putting my lawyer hat. I'm putting my lawyer hat on.
Let's try to keep it.
Yeah. So, yeah, so I don't think that Dan should be penalized for having a stronger view of, knowing that he wants to serve. Which is, kind of practical. I do wonder whether, it could be good, to provide that experience to the other candidate. Yeah, and the other thing is I think that one thing that I would just caution all candidates, but I did notice like a more emphatic and more emphatic set of issues and sort of priorities in the case of Daniel. And so I just want to make sure that we get sure that we have sort of, full objectivity. And one of the things that's hard for all of us as trustees when we come on here is to put aside like our preconceived notions and sort of the things that sort of are, what impact our families or us the most. And so it's really important to just realize that. But again, it's hard because of a lot of speculation. I really don't know. I think that they would all be fantastic candidates. Sorry.
I would agree that we are really fortunate to have such good candidates and people willing to serve, and that it's a challenging decision, and that's like a really good thing. And we do want to keep in mind that we have 2 positions now, but 3 in the fall. So this is not like counting anyone out. There were things that I appreciated from both candidates. I wanted to speak to Dan. It did resonate with me that he had those 3 contributions with being the attorney, having the educator background. He's been teaching on Zoom and teaching in the classroom. And also, I think something that he pointed out is that we have this community coming forward that's a pandemic parent who has not been present, and they are a voice that is going to be needed to be heard in our community. And it's not an experience that we have. It's completely different. And so I really liked the thoughtfulness of him pulling that out. I also appreciated that he has been serving in our community on like the rec center and some other Burlingame aspects. And I am always a strong fan of YRD. But I say that we're very fortunate to have two such candidates.
So yeah, it is hard to balance because there are so many positives of both. I do feel like we do kind of lack a person who really is very tech, that understands this whole area is tech and the importance of that in schools. Our children really need to be tech literate, not just at a very sort of superficial level. They really have to understand how it interweaves in absolutely everything they do now, and certainly when they get out into the workforce themselves. So I'm fascinated by that because I am not a tech person. I don't understand tech at all. And I think that that would be a set of skills that I can't say we've really had on the board before. In
this board.
In our board, yeah. And so that, I mean, I really see that as a positive. I like that he's involved with diversity and inclusion programs. It's not lost on me that we are losing one of our board members who is a member of, a person of color. And I think that, and certainly at Franklin, he would represent, a significant number of families that go to Franklin. And that, I think that's important, and we talk about that a lot, you know, with our JEDI, and if we have an opportunity to actually fill that, we talk about it a lot with, you know, wanting that in our staff, wanting our children to be teachers who look like themselves. I would argue too, we need a board that looks like our children too. So I think that that's something that is unique. And that I am, you know, that I like.
I would also say, as young kids as well, and I believe represent that similar group to what Dan had mentioned, yeah, of not having kids that have gone to school pre-pandemic, so it will still be that representation that was probably one thing that stuck with me the most, was thinking, having been involved in the BCE and the PTA committees and how they're talking about how volunteerism is down and they're having a hard time engaging parents, because now we're looking at 3 years of classrooms of kids that have parents who have never been on campus, who have never been in a classroom. So I do think both of them offer that. It's really important to have that.
I wrote a few notes down, just kind of keywords that people were saying that I wanted to key into. And I noticed that Chaitanya said, approach, align, optimize, prioritize, collaborate. There was, you know, not that this determines that he will be like incredibly collaborative or anything, of course, it can all just be buzzwords, but I liked that he had a thoughtful approach, so did Dan, to how he would operate on the board and with the community members. I liked that, I'm not sure if it's Dan or Daniel.
Yeah.
I liked that Dan brought up the whole education and talked about the arts. And I appreciate that, especially coming from the BCE lens as well. And again, I like his experience with Parks and Rec, budget and curriculum, his commitment to the military. This is tough.
Yeah, again, I think it's tough because you don't want to, and I don't think we are penalizing somebody because, you know, they have a greater handle of all these issues and they have a better idea of their interest in serving. Those are great things. It's speaking to kind of this issue that I think Lisa alluded to, which is getting more engagement, right? And more members of our community to get involved in better representation of everybody. And I do think that, like, in terms of increasing the diversity of the board, in terms of bringing on some of these different perspectives we talked about, again, like the issue areas and responses to the questions were quite different and complementary, I thought, between the candidates. Again, like in the absence of like perfect information, my best guess would be that, you know, in the event that, you know, that Chaitanya is appointed as an interim trustee and it doesn't work out, and then I think Daniel would still be interested, or I hope he would be. And in the event that it works, which I hope is the case, again, there should at least be one, or hopefully just one spot available in the fall. And I very much hope and would encourage, you know, either of the candidates, whichever candidate isn't chosen, to step up again, because I'm sure there are more candidates who simply haven't put their name in the ring and might do so in November, but I would feel really good about these three candidates taking the place of the three people.
I do think in the interim, you might choose the more. I think you sound like you're saying you choose the one who has less interest. I would think you would choose the one with more.
Not less interest, but less conviction, or, you know, in wanting.
Less certainty and
Yeah.
wanting to stay on.
Yeah.
I think you would go the other direction, though, you choose the one who has more conviction.
I agree with that. I think it's
Such an important.
Daniel, I
Again,
appreciate that Daniel
I
did.
get the, yeah, I get the counterintuitive it sounds. It's more like, I think that
You're saying more like give him the few months of a chance to decide if he
Yes.
wants to do it long term.
because I'm
if it's
concerned
only long
otherwise
term,
we
he
lose
won't wanna
out
do
on
it.
somebody who would be a potentially good trustee.
I think we should choose for now and then let November.
Again, I think that's a perfectly legitimate
Yeah.
approach. That is the inherent dilemma I have, which is one should not be penalized for for having stronger conviction and commitment already.
I mean, and Dan, something I appreciate about Dan is that he did his due diligence in learning about the role. And took the time to really talk to people and hear from different trustees, which I think is important, going in eyes wide open.
Are we allowed to ask Chris if he met with all of the candidates ahead of time?
You are allowed to ask.
Did you meet with all of the candidates ahead of time?
So there were, just to remind everybody, there were actually quite a few candidates. So I believe we started out with 7 expressing interest. I actually met with all of them asked to meet with me, with the exception of Chaitanya, who I actually had not had the pleasure of meeting until this evening. That includes 2 candidates that decided not to move forward after meeting with me. But I will not take it personally. They just, and hearing the amount of, so what I would talk to candidates about was majority, like how much time commitment, what a board member had to do functionally, and reminding them that it is a governance function, which is maybe not as exciting as what some of them might imagine to like volunteer because they're really passionate about science. Well, other than adopting like the curriculum, right? Like trustees don't set the curriculum or instruction. That's actually principles. So sort of helping people understand. But I met with everybody except for China.
Sorry, just to clarify, Chris, you didn't meet with him, did you speak with him and not meet with him, or just?
No, I think I shared the email communications with all trustees that I sent out to all folks that were interested. And what I did was gave them my contact information as well as each of yours individually, and encourage them all actually with the same email. That's how I made sure it was equal outreach, to take the time to reach out and make appointments to either speak by Zoom or in person with myself and any of the trustees that they were interested in. And so everybody just got the same email. Yeah.
That's an important clarification. I think it's at least worth considering that that's an important diligent step and representative of potential commitment. I think neither of them reached out to me. The other 3 did and spoke with them. However, it sounds like Dan did speak with some of the other board members and did speak with you. So that's really important because the concern I would have is it's not clear his level of commitment. Right? It's the problem, the dilemma is I'd like to provide that opportunity to get somebody to be more involved and understand that they can't see it. But I think that Elizabeth already made this point before this information, but particularly the information that there was more fulsome diligence potentially conducted by Daniel.
Well, I'm just one person.
There's,
He didn't reach out to me either. No, but I did hear from a couple of the other candidates.
so I guess did Daniel speak?
Yeah, I think he's just the people who were going to stay.
Oh, got it.
I think because,
And
they're leaving.
Chaitanya didn't meet with
We're-
you?
I
Not
did not
some of
meet
it,
with
but why bother to,
Oh.
right?
Okay, that's a big piece.
Well, I also heard from a couple of them that they spoke to past board members as well. So some of them covered many of you plus past board members as well.
Well, that would have changed my ranking if I knew that piece of information, so.
Is it worth trying to see how our votes would flesh out right now, or continuing the conversation? What's the best approach?
Well, I mean, if I'm reading the
Yeah, I
board,
think we can
right,
do the
I can see where everybody's leaning, and I, of course, is still, I mean, completely keeping an open mind, and I hear all your reasons. So before we kind of, I guess we just have to tell each other who we want. just want to still put it out there that this is a board that really values diversity. And I don't want to discourage anybody who maybe feels like you're in a less represented group. In Burlingame, I mean, so if I step off the board, I mean, obviously you're gonna lose somebody who's, you know, a representative from the Asian American community. We're losing our board member who represents the South Asian community. I would really be disappointed if, you know, after the three of us are gone, that this becomes an incredibly non-diverse board. There are lots of problems with that. It's counter to sort of our mission. So I can understand all your reasons for, you know, sounding like you feel Dan has more commitment and maybe a little more of the background to be a board member. But I really don't want to see this board become less diverse in the future. I just want to say that publicly because it really hurts me to go backwards. So, because
I think that warrants continued discussion.
Yeah.
I think we're still talking.
I didn't know if you guys, you sounded pretty set, so I didn't.
No, I really felt appreciative of the due diligence that Dan did, but I really appreciate your perspective as well, and I think it's incredibly important and valuable. So I think we continue talking.
So I would remind all of you as well. So earlier, there was a little bit of a lack of clarity in one of the statements that appointments, there will be one more spot open. So just to clarify, all 3 spots are actually open for the November ballot. So everybody needs to run, right? So I just want to be clear that whoever gets appointed tonight doesn't just not have to stand for election. Everybody still has to stand for election. So just a quick point of clarification. All 3 spots have to be elected.
Yeah, and I want to clarify that whoever it is that is not appointed on an interim basis. Speaking for myself, I would want them to run in November along with the other candidates. Obviously, that depends on their circumstances, but I think that they'd all be great. And I think that the tough part is that I mean, I very much empathize with everyone here, President Wong to the rest of the trustees, which is it's tough, right? Because it is really important to have representation of more of the community and to broaden the outreach in order to increase our functional, you know, our effectiveness as board. It's just tough, right? Because again, you don't want to penalize people for, you know, not representing other members of the community or you know, that kind of thing. And where I think that it's good to have this further discussion, and I'm glad that President Wong brought it up, is that it is possible that or more than just I don't have a full appreciation of, you know, maybe potential barriers, like not actual barriers, but maybe perceived barriers to feeling as comfortable, to you know, maybe knowing as much of us, like on a social basis, maybe, you know, who knows, work is busy, all kinds of things. It's hard to know. And that's why, you know, my initial explanation led off with, you know, wanting to provide an opportunity to encourage more engagement and participation. And so again, I don't really know because I can't speak for, you know, their situations, but that is true.
It's interesting to note the two folks that dropped out that I shared their communication with the board were also actually from
Yes.
groups in our communities, one of them from the Latinx community, as well as one from our South Asian community. So actually, we had a majority of our underrepresented communities applying for appointment to the board, and those two folks, as I shared in their emails to the board, pulled out so that they could volunteer at their schools more. They didn't feel that they could do both. Now, is that reflective? I don't think that the group's large enough, nor they speak for themselves, but I did know that.
Can we go back to the conversation around choosing somebody who we feel like might be less dedicated so that they have the opportunity to explore these next few months and if they're a good fit and what that would do to board culture? That not knowing if we have that stability, I would love to hear from like the more experienced board members on turnover and how that impacts.
Both of them that are going to be
And
here.
talking to Florence and Elizabeth.
I mean, that's my concern is the due diligence and the stability in it. But I also hear what you're saying for sure, and that I am also concerned about our diversity decreasing. I don't know what the right answer is. This is a very hard decision to make. But I understand what you're saying. And that's what we should be striving for, is to have a more diverse board, more representative of our community. So what you're proposing is that we give a chance. I would like to, on someone that we don't know as.
Yes, and I, into what Chris was alluding to is that maybe if you're not part of maybe the mainstream group, dominant group in your area, maybe you don't actually know that you're supposed to kind of reach out like that. Like maybe it might have felt too presumptuous or trying to give yourself an advantage that felt wrong, or, you know, I mean, who knows the reason? There could be cultural reasons that stem from way back. I mean, you might not even be in someone's, you know, thinking that they're doing that, but, you know, I mean, you hear about things like that all the time. You know, you have candidates for high-level jobs and the person's Asian, they would consider it quiet or whatever. They misinterpret behavior to look like they're less qualified when maybe it actually stems from something that's just a little more culture based, right? Whether or not they were born here or not.
And to Deepak's point earlier, we've all been given a strong sense that Dan is committed. So there is another scenario where we can feel confident that his confidence would bring him back in November if we wanted that.
That he would push forward in some papers and throw his name out there.
I don't think we should assume that.
Are you saying that is good in that, like, having him in on an interim basis because we think it's more
I'm
likely.
saying that your idea of giving Tanya a chance now to see if this is the right fit for him and if it is where he feels he can be best involved is a novel idea, and that we can also feel confident that Daniel was committed enough to run if the desire is still there in November.
Yeah, it is speculating, but that, you know, that would be my bet. And just to add on to what Trustee Wong said, again, I don't know the specifics of their situations, but you know, given that Tanya, who I do not know, I've spoken with before, I guess his daughter, like he said, you know, goes to Franklin, where my daughters go, and as Chris said, one of the other candidates who dropped out also has kids at Franklin. And in previous conversations I've had with, you know, Principal Lawrence, she's actually described this dynamic about how there are very large portions of the student population and community population that are not sort of fully represented. And look, some of that is their own fault, right? Because everyone had the opportunity to volunteer and get involved. However, again, like I don't think it's a conscious choice that we do not want to be involved. I do suspect that there are some implicit perceived barriers, right, or hesitation that leads to that. And, you know, she and other, you know, senior folks in the district have expressed this, that, you know, they wish that they had more involvement and engagement by these other members of the community, whether it's, in her case, you know, a largely Asian population in Franklin, or, you know, in McKinley, you know, and also the Hispanic population. And it is an important thing that I do feel that if we have an opportunity to attempt to help that out, it's worth considering at least. And hopefully, if that were to move forward, it would actually work out, as well as promote more participation by people. And hopefully all of these candidates and whoever else is interested, if they want to run in November, should, because the community will decide that at that point, right? So, you know, one thing to know, first of all, Kate and I don't have votes. But ultimately, this is simply an interim appointment. And so I feel like we can accomplish a little bit more in sort of increasing the odds of broader representation without impairing, you know, the ability of other candidates, to still participate. And ultimately, the community will vote and decide which candidates they would like to serve on a permanent basis.
He's a wonderful candidate, like,
Yes.
Yeah.
incredibly. love that.
And I don't know if he's actually not committed, then that'll probably manifest quickly but again, I think it's like, it's tricky, the language that we're using, right? Because like, I don't think it's commitment, it's more like.
It has the bandwidth.
Bandwidth, conviction, there's like, you know, like.
I think
Like, on one hand, it's
and
good.
the administration too, though,
Yeah.
because it's a heavy lift to have a trustee that you're not sure is committed and.
I haven't had that experience.
With our board.
Are you on to talk?
It's so, I'm always allowed to talk. However, this is really in my mind a decision for the trustees. My concern is always a functional governing board for the school district, particularly given the amount of turnover we've had on the board. I've voiced that concern multiple times to the board. I feel that it's sometimes heard. Sometimes I don't. And this is actually an example of you know, the result of that. Because if you remember, predicted this over a year ago.
That there
So
would be board turnover right
with
now.
exactly the turnover we're having. And the stability of the district is largely dependent on that.
Right.
And I feel that that's something that we need to be very, very thoughtful with, which is why I know we asked one of the questions tonight. So I would ask that you all, you need to vote your conscience. But the more turnover, the more instability we have. So it's all about stability for me right now for our district. I trust you guys. Go ahead, you're fine.
The only other thing I'd mention is that, like, I do also want to deflect a little bit of this focus on. I think it's a very important focus, you know, on underrepresented communities. But I think when we talk about diversity on this board, it's not just about ethnic backgrounds or, you know, these types of factors. It's also diversity of thought, and I don't know everything that these candidates would bring in terms of perspectives, but again, in terms of the focus areas of, you know, how the candidates articulated their interests and priorities, I I did feel like there was more diversity in what Chaitanya was discussing and describing in Daniel, as it relates to our already first
As it
appointed,
relates to that, right?
interim trustee. So I think that the finance side of things, in terms of the various issues that the school board needs to be mindful of, will likely be in good hands if Doug, you know, proceeds the way that we expect, and with the rest of the trustees. And to be fair, like, there's not a ton of things that we know about Chaitanya, but I think the teacher retention and turnover expression was interesting because, you know, it was a different issue that was brought out. It was less of a focus purely on the budget and Prop 13 and voter fatigue and real estate and those kinds of things. And but again, I mean, you know, I don't really know, but my hope is that my hope is, you know, is that like I hope that we can get all these folks involved. But, so those are just kind of the observations. Workforce housing is like another issue that was brought up. So I do think from like a complementarity and sort of a collective whole standpoint, that could be more creative to the board, but
I think there would be a significant amount of education, which would be a could fall on our superintendent.
yep,
He did.
yep, that's a fair point.
So I would ask that the board not consider
That,
that.
okay.
That's not a factor to me.
Okay.
I've had to educate many board members here and elsewhere, and so
Okay.
that's something, and we actually have developed a process for it here now since my last time doing it. So that's something we'll do regardless of which board member is chosen.
And we also have the option of how many appointments. Right.
So technically, you've already appointed one and you voted on it, so that one's done. So you have a second one to make. If you do not appoint somebody tonight, then within 60 days of the resignation date of our current trustees, which was March 15th, so that would be May 15th, a special election would need to be called to then elect a trustee, which would also be in November. So it's the same timeline, but in the meantime, the board would operate with 4 trustees rather than 5.
I presume we're not allowed to appoint 6 trustees. Correct?
That's correct. We are currently a 5-member board. That's correct.
I mean, I would actually hope that we fill the second spot because we just need that many perspectives to come to our best.
Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, I
You
think
have such strong
thank you.
candidates, it would be hard to not appoint another one. The
Yes,
issue
it
is that both candidates are so strong.
Right, we
But
shouldn't
it's hard
just
to
strike
decide
both
on one.
because they're so good. So,
I
Well-
will say it all over my notes. I have 15 meetings. Not sure if you said, like, there was a lack of. As far as I hear you, I feel like it's incredibly important, and I also think he's a great candidate. Everything about Tanya was great. I just am nervous about that.
all right,
So
so
the
can
level
you
of
just
background interest or about background knowledge
So-
bringing to the board.
can you tell me who you would prefer out of the two, Elizabeth?
They're both wonderful, and I would like to have our board be more represented, and this is horrible decision to have to, very challenging decision, I should say. have to make. But I did feel that Dan had many qualities that showed me the level of interest and background that would fit with our board. A lot of background knowledge and experience.
All right, so your choice is?
Yes, between these two candidates, I would choose. Okay, Lisa?
Um, just trying to think of the perspective of always the guiding light is our students. And I'm really balancing or trying and struggling with representing our students, as Cora Haggerty said when she was here, representation matters.
That is true.
And also our students deserve somebody who is thoughtfully approached coming to this position and is committed to them. And this is an impossible decision. And we have to have everyone has to
We have to be
be unanimous.
Are you allowed to come up with any additional questions to ask both of them the same question or no?
That's not gonna help. It's up to decide.
So they support whatever decision you make, so.
We said very good things about both people. I don't think anybody's gonna feel we don't like them. Okay. Remember, it's just interim. This is just interim. We're not appointing this person for 4 years. Interim. And then 3 openings in November, whether they're appointed incumbents or not. There are 3 openings. It's okay, and it's soon. November comes very fast.
There's one choice to go right.
Or a Haggerty in my head saying representation matters, and it does.
But again, we have the 3 openings in November. We can help people and encourage people to run. Something we can do too.
I think that Daniel is committed to all of our students, and I feel like he showed that he was prepared, and wanted to be here.
Okay, so your choices. Okay. I'll make a motion to approve Daniel DeVoy to the 2nd interim trustee position. Is there a second? Lisa, second. All in favor? Are you in favor? Okay, all right.
Can I just say that, like, I think that's a fine decision. As you mentioned, it's almost an impossible decision. And while it is disappointing that we aren't, able to take this opportunity from the diversity, would also like to defray any potential guilt or feeling that you might have about the decision, because to be fair, the candidates were provided a fair opportunity to contact whomever they wanted to, and that didn't happen. And so we also had candidates who submitted applications after the deadline who were not allowed to participate because we do have particular rules in place, and our administration nobody likes to do that. That's just like technically a rule. And I remember, I was thinking, oh, that's it's really tough, but you have to do that as a school district. Those are the very difficult choices they have to make. And so I applied the choice that, the proper choice Chris made to say that we couldn't accept that application, and the proper process that you all followed to really thoughtfully think about this and make tough decisions based on.
So I'll echo what Trustee Wong said, which is, it is an interim appointment, right? We do have 3 openings in November. And what I would ask is not just the trustees, but that the community help us find folks that are interested in running. So we did have 7, and I will tell you, of the original 7, there was a great deal of diversity. We had representation of 5 of those 7 candidates from some of our subgroups. Now, why did some of them choose not to? Many of them spoke to you. So you have just as much insight into that as I do. And their reasons were varied. What I would ask is that when we start the recruitment process publicly in June, for people to file papers in August, and I'm saying these dates out loud because I want the community to be aware of them, please encourage all members of our community to actually pursue that and do it, because it was a very diverse pool, and I wish that more of them had continued and followed suit. Sending all the pullouts or the folks that decided not to was painful to me. I actually expressed that to at least to Trustee Wong, because it was tough having recruited so many people, having them drop out, because I was working hard on that end as well. So I'm asking for the trustees' help as well as the community's help to make sure that we have more people participating in November, and that process again starts in June, and you need to file by August. So, and I will be repeating that for district communications. So,
sadly, if my memory is correct, I think that person who submitted late was also American.
yeah, that's correct.
So unfortunately, that's a pattern, but I'll repeat what Chris said, which is, therefore, Kate and I will be leaving, but everybody else who is involved in the district, please try to encourage earlier and more awareness and involvement. And I would very much encourage and request that Chaitanya put his name in the running in November and demonstrate the type of, and to do his due diligence, right? You don't have to be serving as an interim trustee in order to gather a sense of what it might be like to be on the board. So I would encourage him to do that. And if it turns out that he, it seems like something that he can do and would be find that he'd have an impact. And hopefully by November, there's plenty of time to do whatever diligence is necessary. I think that would be well.
And trustees, how many signatures do you need to actually file in August to actually be on the ballot for election?
None.
People still believe they have to.
Yeah.
I'm asking.
No. None. Papers. You just have to fill out a form.
So all you have to do to be eligible to run for the Board of Education.
Go to Tower Road.
That's the hardest finding.
So the number one question I get asked is, how many signatures do I have to go door to door collect? And I'm like, I don't think that's current
No one has to
process.
nominate you, nothing.
Right.
You just pull your papers, take the vote there, and run.
And the other side of this is that I've been told that we've only had one contested election in the past, 15 years? And that's because we've had a hard time getting people to have interest. So part of me also said it's nice to have enough interest that we're not scrambling for people to serve in a voluntary capacity, which is a very important one. So I want to express to the community and the board and the candidates that it's very much appreciated.
The one other thing to highlight, I believe, with Doug being appointed, that puts a vacancy on the bond oversight committee as well. Is that right?
Actually, I believe that is a committee. It's the only official committee of the board. It's legally required, and it does require a board member. I think it's currently Trustee Sarpongol. So conveniently, it seems that we don't need to appoint somebody else if that candidate is willing to serve in that committee representation.
Oh, great, okay. But the parent rep, you need another parent rep. That's the- Oh, you have an extra.
We actually would not.
Okay.
We don't need to do another search for another bond oversight.
Good. Okay. Well, Well, so what do we do now? Are the 3 men still standing in the
I
hallway?
actually sent them in the office. I can,
Gosh.
or Ms. Bell, would you mind getting them, please?
Do we give feedback when they come in? No.
Nope.
Just say congratulations. Hello, welcome back. Thank you for waiting for our long deliberation there. Thank you, all 3 of you, for coming. I mean, I think it took so long because it was very difficult to make a decision, because all 3 of you are actually just, have wonderful qualifications. So thank you so much. If you're the person who wasn't chosen tonight, I want you to keep being interested in being on the board. We will have 3 openings in November. And historically, it's been tough to find people who want to run. So please run. Okay, so tonight I want to congratulate Doug and Dan. You are our new interim trustees. So you have 1 more month before you are forced to sit here too. Tanya, thank you so much for coming today. We love getting to meet you, and I really encourage you, please consider, running in the November election, because we need good people who care about our students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will have Kirsten reach out so that the educational process can begin for the trustees that were appointed beginning at the next meeting. So we have that training process to complete within the next month.
And I have a request too, that Kirsten, that you share those committee assignments, and the 2 who were picked to look over the ones that will be vacated soon, see who can take their spots. Very well.
Thank you all. I know that was difficult to do. I appreciate the thoughtfulness that you all did it with, as well as the compromises that were made.
Thank you to my fellow board members. Your input. Okay, we're going to move on to item 17. Finally, I see Nate sitting there for a long time. Justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, music. Harlan?
Good evening. Thank you, President Wong. Trying to make sure that my microphone's.
No, it works.
Okay, we have Mr. Nate Wong here this evening, who will be presenting our JEDI information, our justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion around our music programs, TK8. We're excited to bring this forward tonight. This is the first time we've actually really dove deeply into our music programs and looked at our breakdown. So, Mr. Wong.
Thank you. Good evening. So, let me move this slide to the next one. Before we get into the presentation, I just want to let you know that I did make some mistakes with the numbers, and I'll explain what those are and speak to them. I apologize, and please bear with me on that. So, objective. BSD is proud to offer a uniquely robust music program to students in grades TK through 8. The purpose of compiling this data was to explore representation among our various student groups to help better understand where there may be opportunity gaps. The data in this report will be used to shape community outreach and inform future decisions regarding music programming. Okay, so this is an overview of our TK through 8 music participation district-wide. So in grades TK through 2, each student benefits from a designated general music class. Grade 3, during the 21-22 school year, the music department implemented designated district-wide 3rd grade classes for the ukulele, including learning how to play the instrument and learning about the culture and history. In grades 4 through 5, each student benefits from a designated choir class for 30 minutes a week, in addition to the opportunity to opt into instrumental lessons. Grades 6 through 8, band, choir, and jazz are offered as electives. There are 40 students studying guitar, karaoke, and music composition during Trojan time at BIS. There are approximately 50 students involved in the spring musical at BIS each year. Okay, so I'm going to get more or further into some of these categories that I just mentioned. So this is grades 4 through 5, opt-in instrumental music. So this is an optional thing that 4th and 5th graders can opt into. So under the orange heading, we have 2019 through 2020 instrumental lessons. And I have it broken down by school there, and you can see the percentage next to each one, percentage of the 4th and 5th graders at each school participating in instrumental lessons. So total district-wide, 608 students participated, which comes out to 83.7% of total 4th and 5th grade enrollment, which is great. And then going under the green heading, we have this year, 2021 through 22. And you can see that the numbers have dropped significantly, 396 total, which is 52% of the total 4-5 enrollment. So participation has declined significantly over the past 2 years. During 2020 and 21, all lessons were on Zoom. Updated guidance was not given to allow in-person instrumental lessons at the elementary sites until October 2021 for the current school year, 21-22. Outreach was made difficult due to not knowing the delivery model of lessons. Each year, BSD is pleased to be able to loan out instruments to students who might not be able to have access to one. This year, we loaned out a total of 95 instruments. Okay. And now I'm going to break down the demographics of the students in 4-5 instrumental music. And this is for this year, for 2021-22. So of the 759 students in grades 4-5, 396 students opt into full out instrumental lessons. So I've broken it down into categories here. Students speaking English as an additional language. District-wide, that's about 15.4% of all 4th and 5th grade students are speaking English as an additional language. In our 4th and 5th grade instrumental lessons, and this is across all schools, 11.4% of our instrumental students speak English as an additional language. Vulnerable students, district-wide, 12.4% of our students are vulnerable. And in our 4-5 instrumental lessons, 9.4% of our students are vulnerable. Students with disabilities in the district, we have 6.9% of all 4th and 5th graders, and 4.8% of all instrumental students. And then female students, it says 170 female students in instrumental, which is 42.9%. That's a mistake. It should be 187 students, which is a total of 47.2%. And then our male students, district-wide, make up 50.7% of all 4-5. And again, I made a mistake there. It should not be 46.2, it should be 52.8% of male students.
So Nate, just for clarification, vulnerable students refers to income status?
That's correct. So moving on. So these are all the categories, the race and ethnicity categories that have more than 10 students. So not every race and ethnicity category is on here because we do not report categories with less than 10 students or fewer than 10 students. And really it's to assure that we retain confidentiality. We don't, especially when we have maybe 1 or 2 students in that category. We don't want to say we only have 1 or 2 students in that category. And I'll speak to the ones that are missing. But we do have students, but we don't report it. So American Indian or Alaskan Native, Black or African American, Hawaiian, other Pacific Islander, Japanese, and Korean. And so these are the federal race and ethnicity categories here. So you can see Asian Indian. The goal here is that the percentages are similar between the red number, the district-wide, and the instrumental. So you can see the numbers here. I won't read through all of them, but you can glance at them and note that our numbers are pretty similar, which is great. So move on. Now we're going to move to BIS, and at BIS, as I mentioned, music is an elective. So you can see in orange, again, we have 2019 to 2020 enrollment, and then under the green heading is this current year. And the highlighted numbers indicate that the 6th grade class went from 23 students, and 2 years later, when those students are now in 8th grade, it's gone up to 52. And essentially the BIS 6th class is, under the orange is the BIS 8 class now. So in 2019 through 2020, BIS offered 4 sections of choir, but due to an increase in student requests for music, this year, BIS added 2 more sections of choir, allowing for more spots for the chosen elective. So this is band participation at BIS. So again, we have the 2019 to 2020 year in comparison to this current year. And you can see that BIS 6 has become BIS 8, and Jazz 6 has become Jazz 8.
Maybe we could go back one side.
Sure. Okay, so due to lessons moving to Zoom, then eventually to in-person, but outside, many students decided not to play an instrument this year. Okay, so here we are again with our participant demographics. Of the 1,032 students in grades 6 through 8, 378 students take a music elective. 167 are in choir, and 211 are in band and jazz band. And for this, I decided to combine band and jazz band because, again, there's only 25 students in jazz band, and we did want to report out all of these categories. So you can see there that one category that seems to be quite underrepresented in terms of band and jazz would be our vulnerable students. And our students with disabilities as well, in both choir and band.
Are you drawing any conclusions, Nate? I know this is the first time we've actually looked at the data
Yeah,
for our music program.
sure.
In the entire time we've had the program, but
Right.
what are the conclusions? I mean, so I'm noticing some correlations with the fact that we were virtual and instrumental music plummeted because basically it's really tough to learn how to play an instrument. I'm guessing, I'm not musical at all, but I couldn't do it in person, let alone on Zoom. Right, so I'm guessing that had an impact, but I'm seeing actually choir participation, which doesn't require a musical instrument or the ability to meet in person. I'm noticing that rates have gone up, and it's more generally representative of all of our different subjects. Is that the conclusion that's being drawn?
That's what I imagine is that, yeah, choir is has gone up. You know, partially maybe because it's the type of musical opportunity that might be a little bit easier to learn on Zoom, for example, and participate in, and might feel a little bit safer both students and parents.
Lower barrier to entry, perhaps?
Yes, yes, and, in particular, if we look at, our vulnerable students, choir is actually overrepresented there, where band is, quite a bit underrepresented. Yeah, and part of that too is, the cost of an instrument also. I lived in an apartment during the lockdown, I couldn't practice. So there are, even if a student was able to find an instrument, or if we were able to give one to them, there's really no way a lot of students would be able to practice. And also, if you think about, if mom and dad are on Zoom, or their brother or sister are on Zoom as well, it's hard to find the time to practice, so.
Have you shared this data with the music department?
Yes, not this version of it, but these numbers, yes.
Are they thinking of targeting recruitment to get some of these numbers back up, not just in general participation, but so for example, knowing that only 10 of our 90 students with disabilities in grade 6 through 8 are participating in choir, when the numbers of all the other underrepresented groups are much greater, is that something that we can target, making sure folks participate?
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't talked too much about this, but we have talked, about outreach and recruitment, specifically. We haven't really gone into these numbers too in depth and drawn too many conclusions, but we talked about kind of general overall enrollment trends and how we might fix some of the issues that we're seeing. And this data is kind of fresh still, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's very fresh.
Yeah.
And there's a music department meeting tomorrow where it's being discussed too.
Yeah, right.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, it's on our calendar,
I
so
forgot
we'll be
about that,
talking
yeah.
about it tomorrow.
Trying to make sure we're not just
No.
doing data presentations, data presentation. we're doing something
No.
with it.
And I think towards the end, you talk about some targeted things that you've talked about with the music team too. So,
Yes,
okay.
yeah. Okay, so in this slide, there are a number of numbers that are incorrect. And when I made it this new iteration of it, the choir and band and jazz band numbers, I divided by the red number, not the gold and green numbers. Chinese is actually 15% of choir, not 2.4, and 20.9% of band and jazz, not 4.3. Filipino is actually 12%, not 1.9. So quite a bit overrepresented there, which is great. And then for Hispanic or Latino, it is 14.4%, not 2.3. And then 6.6% for band and jazz instead of 1.4. And then for white, choir is actually 51%, not 8.2. And band and jazz is 50.9, not 8.5.
It's actually 41.
Oh, sorry. Yes, right. I'm sorry. I wrote that down. I saw that. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry about that. So 41.7.
Mr. Wong, can you just remind them where demographics come from for our audience that might not know how those are picked?
Sure. So this is when students register, when parents register their students, they are given a survey and they identify their children as one of these categories. And again, we're missing a lot of categories here because they are under 10. There are fewer than 10 students in those categories, but parents identify the children as one or more of these categories. They can also choose to decline. But in the state legally, they cannot stay as declining state. They end up getting reclassified as 2 or more races.
So declining to state indicates a multiracial identification by the state.
That's
Well, it's an automatic roll after.
As opposed to a moral.
I was gonna say, so if you're gonna
Proposition.
decline to state, I
Yeah.
guess.
right. Any questions about that from them? Okay, moving on. So we thought that this would be an interesting thing to look at. So you get 2 electives at BIS, most students get 2 electives. And if you choose music, that's one of the 2. So then you have, you can make one more choice. So we thought it'd be interesting to look at what were the other electives that were chosen by our music students. So the first category is students that are taking folk band and choir, or jazz band and band, or some combination. And that was surprisingly 15. And then exploratives, you can just see all the numbers there. I didn't find it useful to put percentages there because it's so low. But I thought it was interesting that our language, our foreign language classes, how much participation we had in those classes.
I make a comment about this? And, our kids with IEPs are required to take skills as their elective, one of their electives in BIS. So that could very much explain why they're underrepresented in choir and band, because they may say, well, I want to take Spanish, more than I want to take band because I have to take my second one in skills.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that seems like a pretty,
Yeah, no,
there's a
absolutely.
chance, that's the
Right.
reason why there's underrepresentation.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that.
I think that's a good thing for us to continue to bring up, especially as every IEP looks at the schedule. So we can really talk about weighing whether the skills is something that's needed, or are there other ways the student can get support that's needed too. So that's something that's important for us to think about as we go forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
So currently every student with a disability is required to take skills.
No, it's an IEP team decision. There are a lot of students that do take skills though, which does take that second slot.
Not that skills is not important,
Right.
No,
it is very important, but it does really leave them with one choice.
Yeah, and there are a few, as I was going through this data, there are students in music that are in that situation. But as we saw, it's not as many as we would like to have.
Can I ask just one question? I want to make sure I'm looking at this right. So taking Italian, for example.
Uh-huh.
So it says 52 district-wide, so that means there's 52 kids at all of BIS taking Italian. And then the 655, that just means that their second elective is music, is that right?
Yeah, so so there are 16 Italian students who are in some sort of music.
Okay, so then the other 30 some are taking
Something else.
other things.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there's a bunch, because wheel is a really broad umbrella category. That includes robotics, coding, et cetera. So, and I didn't want to break that up for you guys because it's a long list.
President Wong, though, to go back to your question, that's a great question that we can put in the special ed JEDI report for next month. The percentage of kids taking skills and what their second electives are too.
Absolutely. So, anything else about that?
Or maybe we could combine the world languages. Because comprehensively, that gives you a better idea of who's taking a world language and music, which is what I think.
Anything else? So last slide here. These are our next steps. These are kind of some things that we'd like to see happen in the future, and these are mostly not things that I've discussed with the team yet. Again, this is still kind of fresh, but so return to school-wide assemblies regarding band participation at the elementary level, 4-5. And traditionally that has included third graders in those assemblies. And that happens at the beginning of the year, and then band sign-up forms go out right after that. And then the teachers make the rosters. Host outreach to families in their home languages. Host outreach to families with the support of CDAC. So our students taking English as an additional language. Outreach to families of vulnerable students, outlining opportunities in the music program and how to participate.
CDAC is Special Ed District Advisory.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. Sorry about that. Thank you. So, and how to participate at no cost. Continue to find and repair instruments to loan out to students. academic value of music education. So these are just some findings that I have listed here. So research supports links to improved test scores, strong correlation to mathematics and language. And out of 378 BIS music participants, there are 60 students in algebra, which I did not report out because that's not an elective. And then 220 taking a language other than English. And then social emotional learning. Students enjoy music and learn about commitment to team building. Helps prepare students for a rapidly changing economy through the use of creativity, innovation, and responsible risk taking. And then lastly, due to our robust TK to 5th grade program, we foresee a rapid recovery in participation in 4th, 5th grade instrumental music next year in the coming years.
Any questions for me?
I have, I just, I'm curious about the 3rd grade ukulele program. How is that going? And do you foresee them carrying it on into other grades, or is it always going to be 3rd grade specific?
We've been discussing that. I don't think there's any concrete answer to that question yet, but it is going well. It's being well received, and we would like to continue it in some capacity.
If you continue it, will you do the same thing you do with the 3rd graders and introduce it to, or invite the 1st and 2nd grader or K1, 2 to an assembly to get them interested in playing an instrument as well?
Sure. We haven't discussed that, but that's something that I can bring to the discuss.
I might have missed it, but you talked about outreach to the elementary school. What about to BIS? There's going to be a dip of students coming in now after COVID, right?
Right.
And there's already a dip. So
Right.
what about outreach to the middle school students?
Yeah, that's important too. I think that's a little bit harder in terms of we like to have the students start in 4th and 5th grade and then
Yeah, there's a real disconnect right now, right?
and then carry that into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. But you're right, there are definitely, and we have discussed this, that there are definitely 7th and 8th graders who took band in 6th grade and are no longer taking it. And so how do we reach out to them? And
There's also the dip from 5th grade now going into 6th grade.
correct,
We
yeah,
took it
right.
often.
Yeah, so that is a good question, and I don't think we have any real good answers about that, but
Yeah.
but it's something we should look into.
It's not a requirement though to have band in 4th and 5th grade to engage in 6th grade, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not. I'm just saying that we like to start there, and then that helps kind of grow our 6th grade program.
If anybody's gone to a 6th grade spring concert,
Yeah.
can you imagine? An instrument in 4th and 5th grade, and they're playing for you in the spring, which could maybe you think about like a summer
Bridge program?
Yeah, bridge program for music, maybe to tee them up for sixth grade.
One of our next presentations.
Did there come up for that? A little bit of ESSER. That might be something.
You find the teacher, I think we can plan.
There will also, I happen to know some music teachers. There will also be a ukulele specific concert in the spring that we're really excited about too.
Be sure to invite us.
We will, we will make sure that you all get invitations. Make sure we get invited.
And I'd like to thank you for bringing this data. I know this was like a lot of work. There's so many numbers and things you were digging through. And this was really important for us to see. We've never seen it like this before. So I really want to thank you for taking the time to do this. I really
much.
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks for the good discussion.
Yeah, and we're hoping to create a website where we can archive these reports, and I can get some numbers and put it on that website for you guys to kind of further fuel.
Yeah, I think our community would love to see it. Because not everybody tunes into our board meetings like that. So, great. Yeah. Thank you, Nate.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nate.
All right. Move on to 17.2 Summer Learning Cost Proposal 2022.
much water here because you feel the heat coming. Summer,
Oh,
right?
it's radiating.
Could you grab, Joel, could you grab
Remember this microphone, that just got preserved forever.
Stroke, that's what they're saying.
So, good evening, everyone. Board of Trustees, community, district leaders. We are honored to present our summer 2022 programming and cost proposal. I feel like I have a little bit of deja vu, but we have two of our wonderful aspiring administrators here. So we have Rosanna Bruzzi and Christina Granillo. They've been hired to be our two summer admin.
Thank you.
So we're so honored to have them. So we'll be co-presenting tonight. So they'll be on campus this summer, so look out for them in the community.
Dr. Spencer, they are both two art teachers too, so they're
Yes,
in-house
that's
employees.
right. That's great. And I'm Joelle Spencer, by the way. Sorry, I forget that part. I'm your director of special education. So I'm going to pass it over to Christina. Next.
Hello. So this is our overview of the summer programs that we are going to be offering or that we're proposing to offer. It's the same blueprint that was used last year, so I'm just going to quickly go over the different programs that we have. So the first one is Extended School Year, or ESY, is the lovely acronym we use. It is offered through special education. It is for students who meet a certain criteria of recoupment, sorry. And it is a service that we offer on IEP. So the goal of this program is to help students maintain skills that they've learned in the past or the current school year, sorry. The next program we have is Step Up to Kindergarten, which is our 5th year offering that. And it's a program that we offer to students who will be entering kindergarten in the fall, who did not have the opportunity to attend preschool prior to fall 2022.
I'm going to overview our summer academy. So this is a program for students to go and be reinforced in the concepts also taught in the current school year, to help them either learn those skills that they may have missed in that school year, or just help reinforce the learning of those to get them really prepared for the next year. And then we are also then going to be partnering with Galileo. Galileo is one of our community programs that we do sponsor here in our BSD community, and they will be working with a lot of our scholars, and we do offer scholarships for the Galileo program.
Our next slide is just a super brief summary of Extended School Year, or ESY. So that it's going to be a 4-week program with the dates going from June 21st to July 15th. That includes 2 observed holidays of Juneteenth as well as the 4th of July. It's for grades preschool through 8th. And the hours, this is slightly different from last year. We are going to be offering 8:30 to noon this year, and that is to account for the added holiday of Juneteenth. In the past, I believe it was 11:30. So we are extending it just to account for that holiday.
Do you know where it's, which side it'll be at?
Of Roosevelt. So this is our proposed budget for extended school year. So first part is staffing, which we estimate to be about $27,000. That's going to include 3 special education teachers, 5 paraprofessionals, as well as 1 speech and language pathologist. And in addition to those staff members, we will also have 1 occupational therapist, as well as 1 floating behavioral paraprofessional. But that is not reflected in our costs, as those are included in their contract, their annual contract. Our next estimated cost is for transportation, which is $6,800. And then our last estimated cost is materials, which is about $480.
So our Step Up to Kindergarten is also going to last 5 weeks. It will begin July 5th and run through August 5th of 2022. Again, these are going to be incoming kindergartners who have not yet been in a preschool setting. And these hours will go from 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., helping to again get them accustomed to being in a school setting.
just a quick anecdote, this past summer, we had the largest group we've ever had. So I think that's reflective of the pandemic. We project the same this summer.
And will, it says TK on there, will you also have TK or is it just for incoming kinder? Because with TK, I know it's expanding next year, so are you anticipating that there's gonna be more,
We
even
did
more?
pull both,
Okay.
incoming TK and incoming kindergarten. So, it's interesting to see.
So with this, we are estimating a cost of $7,938 for staffing, which is 1 teacher and 1 paraprofessional, with an estimated material cost of $120.
So up next is Summer Academy. It's again 4 weeks, July 11th through August 5th. There's going to be 3 program options. One is AM, which is 8:30 to 11:30. The second one is PM, which is 12:30 to 3:30. And then there's the option of attending full day as well for students. And our estimated cost for this one, this includes 15 teachers, 8 paraprofessionals, and 1 mental health therapist. That's going to be a staffing estimated cost of $170,000. Transportation will be $32,000, and materials cost is around $3,800. Oh, sorry, and that includes staffing for full day. So staff will be for both AM and PM. We just need that.
Transportation is for the bus.
Yes, and so
So everybody in Summer Academy has that, can get bus transportation.
So we run it by homeschool. So your homeschool is different than the school that you're attending for summer program. We do offer a bus. So it's a great breaking barrier opportunity.
You pick them up at their school and then take them to the school they're supposed to go to. You can't do like a house to house. pickup. Right. That would take forever. I know, I just want to order around my mind, like, really? You're giving them all the bus? Okay. All right.
School's So for our summer academy, we are going to be providing scholarships to this. Our current social economic disadvantaged students and students who meet a district criteria will be eligible for these scholarships and will have first priority enrollment and opportunities. Scholarship spots will be available as a first come, first serve. So those parents who get their scholars applications in first, obviously will get that first opportunity at those open spots. Family funded is roughly about $500 for the 4-week program. And families can opt in to make donations to support other scholars who would like to come and attend our summer academies. Last year's revenue was around $40,000, and we're looking to either match or come higher than that for this year.
So I have a question. Could you talk about some activities that students might participate in the summer academy?
So Summer Academy will be not just academic, but they'll also have sports and arts and crafts, I guess you could say. And am I missing?
Sure. So last year, actually 2 years ago, we integrated some mental health staff in the program. So that was really helpful. So they were able to do, like Rosanna was saying, some enrichment activities in combination with the academic activities and whole group SEL lessons, which was wonderful.
And are we opening up the scholarships early so our low SES families have access first?
Yes.
So last year, I believe we opened it up 2 weeks early and invited them to make sure that they got to go for free.
Right, and we have our principals and our school site staff reaching out during that time. If there's a barrier for technology or communication, et cetera.
Great.
So our Camp Galileo partnership, again, we're going to be taking on, it is a 1 week camp scholarship that we're going to be offering to our BSD scholars. Again, these are going to be open to our socially economic disadvantaged scholars and scholars who meet our district criteria. Scholarship spots, again, will become on a first come, first served basis. And about an estimated budget is around $65,000 for approximately 200 spots of our BSD scholars. We will also be offering a 30% family discount to our BSD community. So families can take advantage of this discount code for 30% off the cost for the Galileo camps. It is redeemed for 1 week of the Camp of Galileo location. Parents do opt for longer. The scholarship is only open for that 1 week, or that first week, I should say. And the estimated budget for this is going to be around $20,000.
Have this last slide for numbers. So this includes all of the previous information from the previous slides and also our two wonderful administrators in there. So this includes their stipends and benefits as well. So we're looking at about $350K. And I wanted to open it up to questions.
Question about the teachers and the parents. Are they returning teachers to these programs, and are they current BSD teachers?
So we actually don't know that yet. We open the staffing to our current staff. And last year we were fortunate that we were able to secure our current staff for our summer programs. Ms. Bell and I sometimes collaborate. If there aren't enough staff, maybe we would be posting. So hopefully we can avoid that. But we like to provide opportunities to our current staff for summer revenue.
Can I ask, is some of the funding for this still coming from the COVID relief money, or is that where the general fund is coming from?
Actually,
Yeah,
it's right here. You can't see the pointer, but I think it was about 1.5 years ago or 2 years ago, the board had requested where those funds are coming from. So you
Right where it says expanded learning opportunities grant.
got it. That's the
That's
COVID
the-
money.
So we had enough COVID money because we were supposed to be doing accelerated learning or supplemental learning or providing a summer program to try to make sure that we're trying to get students that supplemental learning from what they missed out on. So it covered 2 years of doing this program. So we paid for last year and this coming year. Of course, the issue after that is that we don't have the money for it, but
Yeah.
at least we had 2 years worth of funding.
Is this a big decrease over last year, or is this in line and similar to the numbers of classes? Programs
It's
of last
about
year.
the same, and I'm hoping we get enough staff to support the
Yeah.
same number of students. There was actually quite a few that attended Summer Academy last year, and that's really popular.
If we don't get this staff, could we ever work with the local university and work with their graduating class of teachers?
Yeah, perhaps Ms. Bell is in contact with several feeder schools, so it could look at that as well.
I'm just concerned about with staff burnout, things that you're hearing right now, that we're gonna have a harder time. figuring teachers
So
for
actually,
sure.
our two summer admin have an email time to go out tomorrow about that interest.
Can I ask the question that I'm curious about the answer? So if we post out to all our staff, say, please, 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 we have like 6 teacher roles or, whatever, please sign up, and then we don't get enough, are teachers from other districts who aren't offering a summer program or who have too many teachers who want it, are they allowed to actually just contract for the summer program? Even though they
Yes.
technically work for a different district.
Yes, and
They
correct
can.
me if I'm wrong. So we post stipends, so that is fairly easy to employ if it's a temporary coming in. And as long as they're credentialed, we would have to look at fingerprinting and things like that, so it is a little more complicated, but not out of the question.
We use some semester.
So, yeah.
And since technically most teachers' contract is from August to June, our summer programs go outside of their technical contracts.
There's nothing barring them from doing it.
And since it's all within San Mateo County, it's easier.
Well, this is an action item, so we are seeking board approval, so I'll turn it over to.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion to approve 17.2 summer learning cost proposal 2022.
Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, 17.3, local control accountability plan mid-year update.
Thank you. This might feel a little bit different to those of you that have been on the board for a while. Due to Assembly Bill 130, Section 124E, they're requiring us to bring to the board prior to February 28th, an update, a mid-year update, because Amanda and I have been laughing about this. We've been working on this for a while. Because as of 6/15/21, when the board approved our LCAP for this year, the state hadn't actually approved their budget. So all the new COVID money came in. So now they have us coming back to you mid-year to say, you've approved all of our ELOPs and our ESSERs and all of our acronyms that we love for spending money and extra funds, but we need to tell you what we've done with it with regards to our LCAP. So ultimately what you're going to see as attached there is what is called the supplemental to the LCAP, which has 5 prompts. The first prompt is engagement of our educational partners with regards to the Budget Act along with the LCAP, and that's where we talk about our educator effectiveness block grant, our expanded learning opportunities grant, which you heard Dr. Spencer speak to tonight. The second prompt is around concentration funds, which we do not receive. The third one is recovery from COVID and the impact on distance learning pupils. So that's a lot of our summer learning academies and items like that. Our ESSER money, we had to write a prompt. Ms. Bonneberg and I worked a lot on this. We had to write a prompt about our successes and challenges of ESSER money. ESSER money is great. One of the things we used it for was increasing mental health staff, which is wonderful. Our challenge was finding staff for it. So if you remember, we approved it, we posted, we interviewed, we kept interviewing. We can now finally say we have 5 full psychologists. We're still down the intern, but not psychologists, counselors, school counselors. So we're really excited about that because mental health has been a big component that we're seeing with our students this year. But that has been a challenge finding staff. So kudos to Ms. Bell and everybody else who's worked so diligently on that. And then the 5th prompt was they just asked us to make sure that we are aligning our funds for the Budget Act with our LCAP goals, which of course we are. As you know, our LCAP goals are that every student will succeed with ELA and math on the dashboard, and then they have to, in our county, we have to break it down by a student group. So it breaks it down by students who speak an additional language, students with disabilities, students that students with disabilities, students who speak an additional language. Vulnerable, thank you. My goodness, why I keep like vulnerable. Thank you. So anyway, so we have worked on all of that, and so the fiscal department and the educational service department have worked closely to make sure that all of those align. The LCAP will come back to you in May, June for your first and public hearing, and then for a read. So this is just your mid-year update of where we're at, what we've worked on, and you'll see we've actually done a lot. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, our new interim trustees will have a long read.
Yes, they will.
Lots of items and words.
Right.
Yeah.
Lots of items and words, yeah.
Okay, so this was just an information item.
Yes. Can I ask just one question? I know you mentioned about getting the counselor staffed up, and I noticed that there were a couple of names on the early notification of leaving. So are you now working to recruit to get those positions filled once that transition? We are. So we currently are completely staffed with our 5. Some of them have contracts and we'll look at whether we need to repost for next year or not. But Ms. Bell has been great about getting our positions posted in multiple areas and working with the local universities and colleges to be able to get us the best and the brightest. So yes, there were some on the early incentives, but I feel like we've gone out so early and we've gone out pretty strong. Our mental health team is actually phenomenal, and they've taken the time to reach out to their own connections and their own previous graduate programs. Awesome. So we've gotten a pretty good slew of teachers and specialists applying.
So, and just to remind the board and perhaps the public, so the early announcement incentive program is so that our employees let us know in January that for whatever reason, they won't be back the following year, and we give them $5,000 because in a typical year, they don't have to let us know until they leave, and that could be the day before school starts. And what that puts the district in a position of is constantly trying to recruit because they don't know who's leaving and who's staying. And when we're in budgetarily difficult times and we're constantly looking to make sure we're tuning our positions and not having too much and not having too little, the further ahead that we know, the better we can plan. And that also allows us to then post for difficulty at positions early. So tonight's agenda in one of the consent items had, I believe there were 19, I'll look for Ms. Belgas, there were 19 certificated employees that have indicated in January that they will not be coming back next year, which means that the positions that we need to eliminate, we will take from those 19 so that we aren't adversely affecting people with layoffs. And at the same time, we know far in advance of the typical what we have to recruit, so we have lots of time to get our recruitment done. So it helps in multiple ways. It's well worth the $5,000 incentive for the school.
I'm sure applicants like to know that we know which positions are really going to be open.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
So the second attachment is the accountability plan mid-year report, where you will see the outcomes and expenditures throughout the year. You will see that there has been a lot of activity around interventions with regards to math and ELA, especially our new curriculums, the two that we adopted last year, and then going forward with bringing on 2 new ones this year. So we're really excited about the work we're doing around those 4 core curriculum components. And then our final goal, as you know, is around social emotional learning. And we continue to support social emotional learning for each student in our district.
I just want a quick suggestion, which is, I think on goal 1 of the mid-year report, one of the items, just maybe a suggestion for future consideration, as the LCAP is reviewed, is there was one item that was relates to sort of increasing engagement. And it specifically, I think was trying to get Latinx family nights from 4 to 6 or something like that. And just particularly given the conversation that we had earlier today, it might be worth considering, Asian American engagement events as well, and or any other communities that might be underrepresented in the community, or sorry, in the district.
We appreciate that. We did an AAPI last year. We did one, and that was one of our goals added, along with an LGBTQIA+ community meeting too for this year. So, thank you. Thank you. I do.
We ready to move on? Item 18, business finance, 18.1, 2020/21 district financial audit report.
This evening, we have Matthew here to present the 2021 district financial audit report.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening. Hi. Today I'll briefly go over some of the key highlights from our financials and then some of the key points and results from the audit. So some of the key highlights is total net position decreased by 4.8 million to 6.96 million. This is mainly due to changes in long-term debt. So general obligation bonds increased by 33.2 million. Other post-employment liabilities increased by 3.9 million. Pension liability increased by 3.9 million. This does not have like an immediate effect on the fund financials, other than there's going to be required contribution and premium payments to the fund financials. The fund financials, total fund financials increased by 39.7 million. General fund had an ending fund balance of 16.1 million. Over the past 3 years, the general fund has increased by 4.9 million, and it met the reserve requirements, and it had a 17.3% of total general fund outlay. The results of the audit was we had no exceptions. We had unmodified opinions. There's no material weaknesses noted. There's no significant passes on adjustments, no disagreements with management, and we had no findings. I'd like to thank Amanda and her team for helping us through the audit. This audit was difficult for everyone. I appreciate it. Thank everyone.
questions from trustees?
So I hadn't heard that the audit was difficult this time. Could you help us understand why it was difficult?
I think the most challenging thing is primarily due to the COVID, because a lot of school districts receive extra funding and a lot of changes in state compliance, and a lot of it was remote too. So even though we tried our best to try to, visit the district, but there's some situations where the schools were on distance learning, purely distance learning. So it was very difficult to kind of coordinate with everybody, because like we'll ask for like, oh yeah, we're looking for some attendance documents, but the attendance secretary at the school site has to arrange time to go to the office. So what normally we'll do our field work audit, 3 days can take like a week or two. And so that was primarily the other thing. Plus there's major changes in state compliance, because normally we just do standard attendance testing, but instead drastically changed the distance learning testing. So that was a big change. That was a big learning experience for the school district and us as auditors too, because the state was scrambling for information. We were scrambling for information. Attendance secretaries, the main contact, Amanda was always emailing us previously. It's about like, oh yeah, what's the new requirements? It's like, let us contact the state and we'll get back to you. And then the state will get back to us like, we're still making the state compliance.
I know who to call.
So I think that was the primary challenging thing. So great, we were able to get through it. And that's why I want to thank you for everyone's team, everyone's effort. That was this audit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that was an information item. Item 19, administration part 2, CSBA delegate assembly election.
Yes, this is just typically whenever the CSBA contacts us to see if anybody from districts are interested in running for delegate assembly. We always ask the board if they're interested. Typically, the board has said no recently, so I'm just putting it on here so that the board can determine whether anybody's interested or not.
Well, this one, we need to actually vote on 3 out of 4 people who put their names in, right?
Yes.
Does anybody have a strong opinion about those 4 candidates?
I really liked Noelia Corso's statement.
I do not have a strong opinion. I thought all the incumbents looked great.
Yeah, I agree. All the incumbents are great.
So the first
And I
3.
met all of them. Yeah.
I even met the 4th person, Pat. Oh. So everybody likes those incumbents, because I think we have to submit who we support. So, anyone want to make a motion on the 3?
And what do you think, Florence?
I'm fine. I'm fairly neutral and just sort of whatever you guys feel.
I make a motion to vote for Noelia, Clayton, Sophia.
Okay, is there a second?
That's the first 3.
And I will second with apologies to Ms. Murray. We appreciate her service. in
Yes.
South City.
Yes.
She's a nice person as well.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor for those 3 candidates?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? All right. 19.2 resolution 2021/22-11, authorize reauthorize virtual meetings.
So this resolution will appear monthly at all of our board meetings until it's no longer required. This just authorizes us to have virtual meetings in the event that we need an emergency meeting or a last minute meeting or a second meeting of the month to do a voting on an item. And we have to now approve that on a monthly basis to be able to meet virtually by Zoom.
Any questions? Motion?
To approve or make a motion to approve 19.2, authorize, reauthorize virtual meeting.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Now, 19.3, recognition of outgoing board members.
So we always like to recognize our outgoing board members, and of course, there's a little bit of tradition around this. And so for both Kate and Deepak, typically what we do is we actually buy books for our libraries that suit your interests. So I know Kirsten reached out to both of you and asked you about books that you would like donated in your name to our libraries throughout the district. And so there's a list of them attached, and actually have already been ordered, and some of them are actually starting to arrive already. I believe I saw some.
Most of them arrived today.
Right on.
Going into the libraries next week.
Great, and so some of the items that were received, and they will be in English, and McKinley also gets a selection of books in Spanish, and so you can see that a couple of them that I thought were just sort of interesting, because I didn't know what you folks asked to be ordered. Breaking the Ice, the true story of the first woman to play in the National Hockey League. I think I know. I think I know who suggested that. Okay.
I actually.
I didn't get asked.
I don't
No,
think-
these
I
were
don't think we
surprises.
actually get
We were
those
asked.
These were surprises.
These were
Okay.
surprises.
But it was great because I didn't know these books and they seem
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't know Justice Sotomayor actually wrote these children's books.
Yes.
That's really interesting, too.
Yeah.
Does our librarian have?
So yeah,
quality advice, or how do
we
go
ask for
about that?
interest from board members, and we give them to the librarians, who then look for books that are recommended for our libraries at the different grade levels.
I love it. Yeah.
So I love the also dirt cheap. A young entrepreneur sets out to earn some money and discovers the value of $1. I thought that was great.
Apparently there's a lot of female hockey players, because you got, I think, 2 books, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Fantastic.
and including one in Spanish.
I love it.
for-
I'm gonna have
for
to get a
the-
copy of that for
Yeah.
sure.
So it was exciting. We also have your certificates that all of your colleagues have signed. Something suitable for your office, as you both set up your offices in your new homes. So.
Remember us flying.
For Deepak, for your new office.
Thank you.
I'm gonna hide it so
This is
nobody sees.
fantastic.
Memories, your time on the board, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, yeah.
Really appreciate all of your time. Kate, my constant companion in every community meeting
Oh, my
for
goodness.
the
I
last 2
know,
years.
right? Oh
Thank
my
you so much for
gosh.
all of your time. And
Thank
Florence,
you.
Florence specifically asked to make sure that each of you know that you are a BSD superstar. She said, don't we haven't we used those before? And it happens.
I
Yes.
love
So
it.
You are BSD superstars. Thank you
Thank you. That's
very much.
And I can't help myself, but before I leave, I must point out the typo in this
Great,
section.
we appreciate that.
Viento means wind, not winged in Espanol, so.
Which item is that?
El niño que domó
Under
el
the
viento,
BIS
the boy
category.
who harnessed the wind. I think it should be.
It is the wind, but it's somebody's finger misstruck there.
It's okay. If it wasn't
I
me,
like
that
it.
though,
You
yeah.
spelled hockey right, so I'm good.
Yeah.
You got hockey. That's
it wasn't me, it would be Florence.
good.
So we really appreciate your service. I know it's been a couple of rough years as far as really intense decision-making during COVID, and with a lot of scrutiny and feelings, as well as at the same time working on budget and getting us up to speed on curriculum. So it was an awful lot. And it was not the easiest time to serve, and we appreciate both of you serving.
But we got to finally meet you in person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're the geniuses who decided to join during COVID and leave after.
Who does that?
It's a totally different way.
I really appreciate your service, and I recruited Kate to be on here. And I'm sure I said it was like, oh, it's not that bad.
I think your exact words were, oh my gosh, it's gonna be
It's
so much
fine.
easier than PTA and BCE. You're governing, you're not actually.
You're not running around
Running
begging
around.
people to do
Yeah,
things
it's
for you, but it was more emotionally draining. And this was pre-pandemic for Kate. She walked into a couple of dicey issues that we were dealing with. You know, I always felt bad for your husband, Mike, because I know he suffered a lot.
Oh, wow.
So I put it out there. Sorry, Mike. but it's almost done. And thank you, Kate, for sticking it out. I know it was very hard. You know, you feel everything. So my advice would be to, you know, kind of, I don't know, get some kind of thicker layer of
Yeah.
protection so you don't let people
I'll still be sending you all my email responses from Chicago
So
saying,
hopefully
please
no
read
one
this.
is bugging you, you know, and Deepak, you really stepped up and came in during what everyone can agree has been a very tough time for all school board people across the nation. You still did it. Really appreciate that. And, you know, it's like we've all gone through this very tough thing together. And, you know, it doesn't matter that you were, you know, not here for your full term. I still will always appreciate your service and what you contributed to this board. You know, just don't forget something like that, especially in such a heightened situation. This was so atypical. So if you try to run for a school board somewhere else, I really think it's not that bad. Really. So please, you know, consider doing that. Thank you both.
So thank you. It has been an interesting couple of years, and I appreciate everyone in this district. I said it, I think, last month, but just the being on this board is kind of what kept me sane through COVID. So it really, having the knowledge, having such great resources, the district office, the staff here, you guys are amazing. And the district, I know, is moving in the right direction. I feel so good leaving here knowing that we've made some really tough but important decisions, and that the right people are leading us and where we need to go. And to my fellow board members, it's been great getting to know you all. Some of you I knew before, but yeah, it's just been a great experience. But I told Florence I wasn't going to cry tonight, so I'm not going to.
I already cried for us.
Yes, yes. I actually, when I read the agenda, I'm glad that the lists of the books were in there, because as soon as I saw the hockey one, I got very emotional. So for those who don't know, part of the reason we're moving is because my kids all play a lot of hockey, and it's not really common in California. It's a lot more common in Chicago. So, but yeah, so just thank you all for everything. And I will still be tuning in and checking in and seeing how things are going, because I want to see how the new curriculum is rolling out. I want to see how everything keeps moving in the right direction. And you know, if anybody's in Chicago, please look me up.
We're gonna watch the board.
You're gonna be
meetings.
I'm gonna be the sole subscriber on
Oh my
YouTube.
gosh.
Yes. Yeah.
We actually have a
I'm gonna remain
Yeah,
one
I
of the
was shocked by
followers.
that too.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I said funny, and I appreciate it. So the only I say in addition is welcome to incoming trustee Brown and incoming trustee DeLoy. And about this experience. So thanks for stepping up.
Well, I would just like to say that I was very excited and looking forward to working together for our full term. We started our mid classes together, and our orientation and our one-on-ones with Chris, and I always appreciated your feedback and your perspective, and you always had like an interesting way to look at things and an alternative perspective, which was really helpful in so many of our conversations. So thank you. And Kate, you fielded so many questions, and you gave me such a warm welcome to the board in a tough time to join a board, and I really appreciate how willing you were to take my phone calls and answer my text messages and talk me off the ledge. And it was really helpful. So thank you for your wisdom and guidance.
So much. And for stepping out to the board in such a time. I mean, my goodness. Thank you. And you have learned about cathartic email.
So therapeutic.
Just never push send.
I was gonna say, I would like to point out, since this is now evidently something we're talking about, that therapeutic email actually doesn't get sent.
Yes.
And doesn't actually exist except on that person's account, which is on their
Which will be
account.
deleted on
Which would-
March
that's right,
15th,
that's
so
right.
we're good.
So
Or maybe old fashioned pen and paper.
Pen and paper.
Yeah,
there we
stays
go,
in your
there's a
home.
great idea.
Yeah. Never to be inadvertently said.
That's right.
We're gonna miss you guys. Yeah. Okay, now I'm gonna cry.
Well, that's because you just realized you're gonna be president again.
Bring it up again.
Sooner than you ever imagined.
Yeah, just got. All right, let's move on. Item 20, Human Resources, 20.1 Executive Order MB22.
Mr. Valley, you are the last item this evening.
Always am. I like to think of it as saving the best for last. Okay, so on January 11th, Governor Newsom, Governor Newsom signed Executive Order N/3/22, which immediately enacted staffing flexibilities to help with ongoing staffing issues that districts are facing. So upon board approval, BSD will be using this executive order to employ Craig Goldman, who will be the interim principal for Washington Elementary School. Craig started in the position yesterday, 2/14 on Valentine's Day.
So please wrap up.
Yes, and will remain in the position until the end of the year. We're very fortunate for that. BSD will also be using this executive order to fast track substitute teachers and getting their 30-day sub permit quicker than normal. And so I am requesting that the board vote on approving the use of executive order N-3/22.
What have questions for Allison? All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the executive order N-3/22.
Second. Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Okay. Public statements related to non-agenda topics.
None
None.
present.
Okay. Before, board requested items, item 22. Anybody else? Okay. And before we get to 23, I want to remind you that you are technically still on the board another month. So if you have committee meetings or anything that you're supposed to go to, you're gonna go.
Thank you for that reminder.
Yes,
That's
I just want to just put that in your heads.
I still have to do my one-on-one with Chris this week.
And it's still on your calendar.
Yeah, whatever's in your board calendar is still expecting you to show up. Okay. All right, item 23, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Kate. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Javon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
trustees.
Thank you.
I would just like to point out that apparently I was